make sure James on or Gail, are we on?
We're live.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Well, it's call to order. We have a quorum and welcome to the May 11th, 2021 Ojai City Council meeting. Gail, may we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Blatz.
Here.
Councilmember Francina.
Here.
Councilmember Haney.
Here.
Mayor Sticks.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick.
Here.
Thank you. Thanks, Gail. And Bill, will you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready? Let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. And before we approve the agenda, I just wanted to have a word because as we all know, last week's meeting, as Ryan said, the subjects were difficult and complicated. Appreciate that, Ryan. And so it definitely felt unwieldy I'm speaking for myself. And so I just wanted to recommit here to civil discourse and working together. And I'm so grateful to all of you, and I really appreciate you, and to listening. And while we may not always agree, just doing our best to understand where everyone's coming from. And we all know that we want all the best for our dear, sweet Ojai. So just recommitting to working together and having a smooth meeting. This is going to be the Maserati of meetings tonight. So thank you very much. May we have approval of the agenda, please?
Move to approve.
Not yet.
Second.
Okay, all right. And a roll call, please, Gail?
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Councilmember Haney.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick.
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz.
Yes.
Thank you. So moving on to presentations. James, you want to start with a Lifetime Achievement Award?
Yes, and I'll be introducing the Arts Commission Chair, Marcy Toscher, who is in the waiting room and will be brought in here momentarily. But we on April 15th, the City Council ratified the Arts Commission's choice of the 2020 Lifetime Achievement in the Arts Award, which is an award that that was founded here in Ojai in 1987 and is an important tribute from the City Council and the citizens of Ojai to Ojai artists who understand and appreciate the arts here in Ojai. So with that, I don't want to spoil it, so I will hand it over to the Arts Chair, Marcy Toscher, to give more information on this year's recipient.
Hey, thank you. Am I visible or I'm just a name up there?
You should be visible, but I'm not seeing you. James, can you make sure that Marcy and Barbara are visible?
Marcy, you can turn on your camera.
It
Should be a little, it says like stop video or start video. Okay. Oh, I see
Yeah,
Barbara.
I'm clicking that icon. Let's see. Maybe I need to, hold on a sec. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Using my husband's laptop, and I might show up as someone else. All right, start my video.
There we go. Yep.
Hi, Marcy.
You can see me now, and I can't see you guys, which I guess is okay.
We can see you.
I can see you.
You can see me? Okay, great. Maybe I won't be as nervous then since I can't see you. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Vega. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. And thank you, everyone who might be joining us virtually tonight to honor a very special member of our community for her outstanding contributions deserving of the Lifetime Achievement Award in the arts. Ordinarily, we would have gathered in City Council chambers to celebrate together, sharing handshakes or elbow bumps or whatever, but for obvious reasons, it wasn't possible tonight. So we're breaking protocol and we're presenting this virtually. If you're lucky enough to see our awardee, bump into her somewhere in town, please offer her hearty congratulations and give her the elbow bump then. Anyway, here's a question. Who do you get if you find someone who has is combined, who has a love and passion for Ojai, a lifelong interest in all facets of art, impeccable artistic taste, unbounding creativity, and passion for philanthropy? Well, guess who you get? You get Barbara Hirsch. She's our the Arts Commission's recommendation to the city for our 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Just want to tell you a little bit about what.
Are you practicing? Okay.
No, I'm not being televised, Steve. What, your car key?
Yeah, my car key. The other.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So sorry. All right, so we've got Barbara Hirsch. Barbara has been an admired arts advocate in Ojai for many years, and Ventura as well for at least 21 years. And she served on the board of the Ojai Music Festival, the Ojai Festival Women's Committee, the City of Ojai Arts Commission, the Ojai Valley Hospital Foundation Guild, Community Memorial Hospital Arts Advisory Committee, the Community Memorial Hospital Architectural Oversight Committee, the Rubicon Theater Company, the Ventura Arts Council, the Ventura County Foundation Arts Live, the Ojai Women's Fund. Barbara and her husband, Dr. Anthony Hirsch, are Ojai Living Treasures, awarded by through the Rotary Club of Ojai. Also, the Venice Family Clinic awarded Barbara a Visionary Award for her 50 years of community service as a founding member of the Venice Family Clinic Art Walk, a very successful fundraising event. Through her involvement with the organizations that I detailed, among other things, Barbara spearheaded Operation Picasso from 2003 to the present. Operation Picasso procures and curates artwork for medical facilities, resulting in an aesthetically pleasing healing environment for patients, medical professionals, visiting family members and friends. Barbara also serves as co-chair of the Community Memorial Hospital Art Advisory Board, and Barbara assembled a contemporary art collection for them. The collection is a reflection of the community, comprising over 700 pieces, many from local and regional artists. She also helped to carefully curate significant works of art for the City of Ojai's own municipal art collection, now recently installed at Community Memorial Hospital, as well as the continuing care facility at Community Memorial Hospital, and City Hall's own art gallery, which I hope when the City Hall opens up, everyone will come by and take a look at all the beautiful pieces of art the city owns. Barbara has also organized inspiration art, music, and dining experiences all over Southern California as a fundraising event for the music festival. Barbara travels the world over with her husband, Tony, in pursuit of discovering and enjoying art, and she's always thinking about Ojai during her travels. During one visit to New York, she spotted some unbelievable stained glass windows in a Jewish museum and noted that the artist was none other than Ojai's own Susan Stinsmulen Amend. Upon Barbara's return to Ojai, and in collaboration with the Jewish community of Ojai and Susan Amend, Barbara orchestrated the return of the stained glass pieces home to Ojai, where they are enjoyed today, along with newly commissioned pieces by Susan. That Susan did for the Jewish temple. Barbara also quietly supports and promotes local artists without fanfare or ego. Well-known artist, Ojai artist Pamela Grau, until recently the president of Ojai Studio Artists, said of Barbara, "Barbara is the kind of woman who just makes things happen. She does this in a way that appears effortless and with, despite any inconvenience. She connects people. She rolls up her sleeves and she's not afraid to do the hard things. When I moved to Ojai almost 8 years ago, she was one of my first artsy folks I met. She generously included me. She invited me to the Ojai Women's Fund and the local synagogue, the Playwrights Conference, and so many other enriching experiences. She is wonderful, and I'm so grateful for her guidance. There are women you meet in life that live up to the Jewish Friday night prayer, a woman of valor. She is the epitome of this psalm, generous, thoughtful, a problem-solving community member who gets things done. She embodies all that is good. Anna Wagner, Director of Development for the Ojai Music Festival, shared that Barbara has an innate gift of bringing excitement to any project that she takes on and invites people to join in on the fun. She truly has a gift for making everything that she does beautiful, stylish, and artistic. What a gift she has been to Ojai, not only through her philanthropy, but changing any project she takes on from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Finally, on behalf of all of the members of the Arts Commission and the members of the Public Art Committee, Christine Golden Chair, we would like to thank Barbara for her commitment to public art in Ojai. She's a permanent member of the Committee to Approve Public Art, CAPA, and happily attends all of the meetings that are required to approve certain public art projects in Ojai. And she also enthusiastically joins on any public art jury we need to assemble to vet public art projects. The arts are thriving in Ojai. Please thank Barbara. Brava, Barbara. You're an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Incredible. And I'm lucky enough. Barbara's a personal friend of mine, and I'm just so grateful to you for giving that to her. And what a gift Barbara's been to our community. So incredible, extraordinary, a woman of valor. Love it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a presentation from our own beloved Tiffany Morse, School Superintendent. And as we all know, Tiffany has, Mayor? Oh, did I miss something? Sorry.
Did we want to give Barbara?
I'm
the
sorry.
opportunity?
I'm just moving right along. All right. Yeah, is Barbara here?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, oops,
We have
sorry.
a lot of boxes on screen, but yeah,
Okay,
Barbara
I don't-
is here. So
She's here. She looks beautiful.
I'm sorry,
Hi.
Barbara. Oh my gosh, you're gorgeous. Look at you and your background. Hi.
Hi. Well, Mayor Sticks and Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick and Arts Commissioner Tosher and Vice Chair Chisholm and the members of the City Council and the members of the Art Commission, I am overwhelmed. I am really overwhelmed. And I don't know whether you can all see this, but this is the beautiful award that was brought over to me last Friday, honoring this occasion. I want to thank you for this enormous honor and the beautiful award, and for recognizing the value of the arts and how they affect every part of our lives. For me, the arts are comprised of the visual arts, the performing arts, and the written word. My interest was fostered by my parents from early childhood and is the thread that connects my entire life. Although my activities involved the visual arts and the performing arts, I think the most significant projects include the arts in healthcare. And now there was so much said that I am really overwhelmed, and this might be redundant. But you know, it just shows that art is more than just a picture on the wall. For healthcare, research has shown that the exposure of art in the hospital shortens patient stays, reduces blood pressure, and relieves tension for not only the patients, but for their visitors their family members, and the health providers. 30 years ago, when I did do the project at Tiverton House that was already mentioned, it was the beginning of the recognition of the arts in healthcare. That was at UCLA. That is a 100-room patient family guest house that houses those patients who are in treatment or their families who are visiting with them and staying with them. I was really honored when 20 years ago, the Ojai Valley Hospital invited me to do the same kind of project here under Operation Picasso. And then, of course, just 2 years ago when we completed the CMHS project, which was also mentioned before. I keep saying I, but you know that that's not the whole story. Throughout my life, collaboration with co-chairs, hospital administrations, mentors, and supporters have allowed these projects to come to fruition. I know that my allotted time is short, but I really need to thank the following people. Don't worry, it's not more than an alphabet's length. They are Tony, Francine, Minna, Hans and Gretel, my parents, Sheila, Karen, Cheryl, Steffi, Royce, Denise, Debbie, Barbara, Joan, Neva, Richard, Susan, Ray, Hadi, Adam, Mustafa, Elise, Arina, Alan, Mitzi, Anne, Terry, Christine, Nancy, Chris, Teresa, and of course, my 3 children, their spouses, and my 6 grandchildren. That's a mouthful. The activities that you're honoring me for tonight taught me about creativity, collaboration, leadership, friendship, giving, and receiving. My life has been so much richer and more purposeful by participating in the arts. I have received so much more than I have given. And I really want to thank you again, Ojai City Council and the Ojai Arts Commission, for this meaningful honor and the beautiful Fused Glass Award. So thank you with all my heart.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. You're incredible. Thank you for all you've given to our community. So grateful and so fun to see you here.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we can move along. And next, yep. Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Marcy.
Bye.
Bye, Barbara. Next, we have a presentation from our own Tiffany Morse, Dr. Tiffany Morse, our school superintendent, about a year in COVID. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Tiffany, because we all know how challenging it has been for all schools and kids and parents and families. And it's been in some ways a lose-lose. And Tiffany, you made it a win-win. So really grateful to you, and Ojai. We're just really lucky to have you. So thank you.
I am going to share my screen. And while I do that, I'd just like to thank you, Mayor Sticks, City Council members, and Mr. Vega for having me here tonight on behalf of the Ojai Unified School District Board. And I'm going to put this into present mode. This is actually, I believe, my first time that I've presented this update to you. I came a couple of years ago when Mr. Cantwell was giving his last presentation to you. And then last year, obviously, things were a little more difficult. So I'm excited to be here tonight to present to you an overview of where we are in the school district. So I'll just start by saying one of our big achievements this year was that our school board adopted 7 overall goals that now guide our strategies and where we're going in the district. And I won't read all of these to you, but you can see that we have a focus on whole child, student achievement, innovation, equity, also reflecting our community values, facilities, and fiscal health. And so I'm just going to share with you tonight a few updates that we have on some of these items that I think might be most interesting to you tonight. So first, just an overview of where we are in the district. Our enrollment remains steady in the 2020-21 school year, which was quite amazing because it dropped significantly for many other districts in the county. We were able to remain within about 5 students, which was great. After we returned to school in March, we were the 2nd school district in the county to return for in-person attendance, and 75% of our students are now attending in person, which is a much higher percentage than most school districts around the county and the state have. Partially, I think, because we came back earlier. Our budget also remains steady in the 2020-21 school year. That's good and bad. We, of course, would always like to have more revenue so that we can do some of the things that we need to do district-wide, like employee pay. But we also did not see the significant reduction that we thought we would have in early March. That's great. We were actually last year able to double our reserve for economic uncertainty. So that's good that we are moving in a steady fiscal direction. A few highlights for you from our facilities. Things that we're very proud of that we've been able to accomplish this year. First is the Matillah, these are in no particular order, by the way, but first is the Matillah Watershed mural that we were able to install on the side of our Place to Grow preschool. That has been very popular, and that was, of course, done with an Arts Commission grant, which we're very grateful for. We're continuing to make improvements in that area so that people can enjoy that mural. We have some tables and umbrellas ordered that we'll be putting together as soon as we can. We also have been working community-wide on our field and court improvements. So we really see our facilities as a community asset. And so we want to make sure that as the community is enjoying those, that they are the best quality we possibly can. So we've been working on gopher abatement. You'll see at the basketball courts at Matillah, very nice new backboards that are enjoyed frequently by the community. There's hardly ever a time that I drive by that I don't see, 20 or 30 people out playing basketball on those courts on the weekends. We also are working to install a disc golf course in the next couple of months at Matillah, which we're excited about. So a 9-hole disc golf course that will be on the campus there for our students to enjoy. And then we assume also that the community may take advantage of that as well. We have our Measure K school bond that passed this year in November for $45 million. We are working on the project planning for that and making sure that we are good stewards of that money and looking at the overall needs of the district and looking forward. One of the pieces of that is a master plan at Nordoff. So we have added on to Nordoff over the years without really an overall strategic vision of what's needed at the site and how all of the pieces play together. So now that we are also working simultaneously on the pool and having community use at the pool at Nordoff, we want to make sure that we are really strategically positioning things on the campus so that they make the most sense. So we have a stakeholder feedback meeting for the Nordoff master plan, I believe the first week of June. And we're working on several different options of what that looks like, thinking really thoughtfully about our athletic fields and what that looks like, the location of the pool, parking, tennis courts, basketball courts, It's likely that we will need to build a new kitchen and cafeteria, just due to the age and condition of the building. And if we do that, is there potentially a way that we could include a space that could be used for potentially performing arts? So that's on the table for consideration. And then for the pool, we are in our planning phase. We've had one stakeholder meeting, and we will continue to have more, particularly over the summer when we have a little bit of distance from the end of the school year, but really ensuring that what we develop will be able to be accessed both by the school and by the community. I want to just share with you a little bit about what we're doing in terms of student and family services, because this has been a huge area of focus for us this last year during COVID. When we first closed our schools on May 6th or March 16th last year, our number one priority was mental health services. And we have continued that to this day, providing health services, mental health services for our students, and also regular sessions for our parents who may be struggling with how to support their children during this difficult time. We also have had a focus on internet, providing internet and technology throughout the district. So one-to-one devices for our students, hotspots for our families that don't have easy access to internet or don't have adequate internet to support the distance learning that was taking place this year. We also started last year something that we call Family Fund, which is a program that's part of the district that supports the needs of our lowest income families throughout the district. And so we provide a number of different services from bikes. We've given away 150 bikes to families over the last year and a half. We have a regular and ongoing clothing closet. We collected gift cards for families and over the holidays, and generally other needs that families may have are handled through our Family Fund. Even, for example, trolley tokens for families who don't have regular transportation to get to and from school. We also have been providing meals to anyone in the community who has students, whether they attend Ojai Unified or not. And to date, since last March, we've served over 200,000 meals to families. And then finally, just a little overview of some of our community programs and partnerships that we're very proud of. We have something called A Place at the Table, which is really grown out of our diversity, equity, and inclusion guiding coalition, which is a partnership of community members, staff members, parents, and students. They are interested in this diversity and equity work. And so we have a monthly event that's open to everyone in the community that is in honor of the monthly commemorative event. So for example, we had Black History Month, Women's History Month, where Mayor Sticks was a fabulous panelist. We had Asian Pacific Heritage Month and Jewish Heritage Month, Jewish American Heritage Month, just last week, I believe. So we're excited for those and excited for those to continue next school year, really to begin this dialogue in the community, continue this dialogue that we're having around how we can support everyone in the community to have a place at the table, regardless of their heritage, background, or anything else. We also partner with the Secure Beginnings Diaper Bank, and we host them here at the district office. They deliver their diapers from the central location here. We also coordinate with our meal service, and so families are able to come and get diapers and meals. And then finally, we are partnering with the library, the Ventura County Library System. They are have lost their lease in the Miners Oaks Library, and so we're developing and designing a library, public library, to be at Miners Oaks Elementary School. That's a joint partnership. So we're very excited about that, and we hope to have that complete in the next 12 months or so. And with that, that is the end of my very brief overview. I know your time is very valuable, and so I will take any questions that you may have.
I just want to say thank you, Tiffany, for your heroic amount of work and just helping so many people, members of our community, and I mean, so many aspects, you know, the mental health services, the Family Fund, all the collaboration with our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
We're a very great team of people working here at the district office, 300 employees who work every day to make that happen.
And the plan for the pool, a lot of people are excited about that. So thank you. Anybody, questions, anybody? Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for coming, Tiffany, and see you in the neighborhood real soon.
Yes. Hi, thank you.
Thank you. Bye. All right, no more presentations, James? Okay, any commission reports?
I do not believe we had any commissioners. We did not have any commissioners signed up when I checked earlier. Let's confirm that. Gail, are there any commissioners signed up to speak under commissioner reports?
No, none.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, moving on to public communication.
We have no one signed up for public communications.
Okay, moving right along to the consent calendar, motion to approve.
Move to approve.
We have one person who wants to speak on an item on the consent calendar.
Okay,
Shall we pull it? What item is it?
I don't know. It's Mr. Miley. I can bring him
Hi.
in.
If I could jump in there, Madam Mayor, my recommendation would be take a second, as I didn't hear a second, then take the comment and then vote. It's up to the council to pull an item or not members of the public.
okay,
But you could take Mr. Miley's comments after second, but before the vote.
okay. Do we have a second?
Who was the first?
Made the motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks, Matt. And may we hear from Mr. Miley now, Gail?
One moment. Let me bring him in.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Miley, you should be able to speak now if you can go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm aware that this agenda item is about allocating more reserve funds for the law firm we've contracted with to be able to continue participating in the Ventura River Watershed adjudication. And I'm okay with that. But I'm not happy with the city of Ventura for adding us to this messy water conflict, especially after seeing what appears to be hundreds of high-end rental apartments built on the bluffs above the Ventura Freeway. Now they're renting it. Just where is all this new water coming from? When several years ago, the Santa Barbara Channel Keepers challenged excessive water use from the Ventura River, which is now the lawsuit. Another complaint I have is about how Ventura planning decisions created the first row of the new apartments overlooking the ocean with 4 stories, and the ones behind are lower. What's the justice for not allowing more units to see the ocean by building the first row 1 story and each behind a story higher? At least more get to see the iconic view. This way, only those with money who can pay the higher rents get to see it. Social justice is not served. These are all good reasons for not looking to Ventura for any planning ideas. Boo on them. Thank you. Night.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. Okay, wait, may we have a vote, please, Gail?
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks,
Yes.
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz,
Yes.
Councilmember Haney.
Yes.
Great, thanks, Gail. All right, moving on to discussion items. Number 2, my Ojai smartphone. Exciting.
Yeah, so we're here today to launch a project that was identified as a city council goal back in 2018. It was actually one of the last few items on that list that that hadn't been completed, and it was to enhance our communication by investigating a what's called a citizen request management application, which allows residents to quickly and easily submit issues or find information from the city and other agencies. And so we looked at it back at that time. People may recall we actually had a demonstration at a city council meeting, but the cost was very high and the functionality was not to the level we were looking for. So we continued to reach out to different groups, and we found and connected with GoGov, who helped us put together the My Ojai app. And they helped us put it together. We tested it out, and we think it has great functionality. One of the key items it has is the ability to submit a complaint that shows the location of the complaint, where somebody can quickly and easily add a picture from their phone and upload that, and we have photos of that complaint or that issue. And so here today we are launching the software, launching the application. It's available as we speak on the Apple Store, and Android is the My Ojai app. So anybody watching that wants to follow along can go and download the by searching for My Ojai, and it'll come up. And with that, we wanted to start with a demonstration tonight from GoGov. And I believe we have Kevin, I believe, is attending to give us the presentation. And I think he is coming in now. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to walk us through a demonstration of the My Ojai smartphone app.
Yeah, thanks, James. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for letting me join to do this. So, yeah, as James mentioned, it's a citizen request management software, which is just going to make it easier to do all the things that James kind of described. And really, the parts I would like to focus on with you today are the citizen-facing pieces. There's two main citizen-facing pieces that are going to be available. The first one, of course, is the mobile app, which is really the star of the show for most of our customers. And it's called My Ojai. Search for in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. And once downloaded on the device, really kind of the story we're telling to citizens is, hey, download the My Ojai app. And number one, get all sorts of useful information at your fingertips. And that's these buttons that you see here. And these are completely controlled and dictated by the city, and they can be changed at any time. And essentially, it's pointing to specific content that's available on the city's website. There's a school of thought that folks are less likely on a mobile phone to open a web browser, Google the city, find the website, and browse the pages. So the concept here is to kind of pull out and surface specific things that people might want to have quick access to, like the recreation website or any of these other pages that you see here. These are all readily available for people. And once they're done browsing them, they land right back here on the app home screen. Of course, the other main thing they're going to be able to do through the app is to do a service request. So if I see a pothole, a code enforcement concern, ultimately all city departments can be represented on here. I have some sort of question or request. I'll hit this start request button. And what I'm seeing here are a listing of topics that were collaborated on with the city staff for things that we've made available for citizens to submit. And you can see all sorts of different categories here. I can scroll through them. As people start to use the app, this popular section at the top will get filled in with things that are most commonly asked for. So the most accessed ones are readily available. And of course I could search through here. So let's say I saw a pothole on my street that I wanted to report. I simply choose it from the list, and it's a very simple two-step process to get something submitted. The first is, hey, do you have a photo to better help us identify this issue? And if I didn't, I can still submit it. Or maybe I want to open my camera and snap a picture right here and now. Most commonly, what we find is folks have already taken a few photos when they go to report it. So they'll grab a few pictures out of their camera roll. I've got a pothole or two here that I'll throw in. And then once they click next, what the app will do is go to either A, use your current location, or B, pull a location right off of the photo and assume that's where the issue is submitted. If for some reason that's not available, we will show them this map, as you just saw, where they can go ahead and drag and drop the pin to kind of indicate where the issue is. You'll also notice there's a boundary around the city, which ensures that all the requests that the staff receive are actually from within the area that we actually service, right? We always joke with our customers, everyone usually has enough of their own work to do. We definitely don't need to be spending time working for other municipalities. So definitely makes it easy in that sense. And then in terms of what else is done, that's completely based on the type of thing that we're submitting. So for example, what we ask and require of someone to report a pothole to us might be very different than what we ask and require of them to report, tall grass and weeds, or to do like a public records request. So the type of things that you require will fully be dictated by the type of issue. So here it looks like we just require a description. I might say, please fix this pothole. Thanks. And then all they'll have to do is go ahead and click submit. You will notice here at the bottom, I have this option for private or anonymous. Essentially, this is giving me the choice for either submit this request with my contact information alongside of it, which is beneficial as a citizen, if there are any citizens listening, because if you can submit this with your information, one of the things the software will do is that as the staff are using the staff-facing software to work the issue to completion, automated messages will go back to the citizen via push alert, keeping them up to date with the status and ultimately letting them know when it was closed. However, there are certain situations where we might not feel comfortable providing our name with said complaint, so that we do have the option for anonymous, in which case no information is collected. So they'll simply click submit, and that's it. It's that simple. It thanks them for their submission. I'll also receive an email to my email address confirming my submission, giving me a thank you message, and then, as I mentioned, get kind of status updates and a closure notice when this is eventually complete. Citizens will also have access, as they start doing a few requests, to this track request button, which will show them not a list of open issues across the whole city, but rather just a list of things that they've submitted to us in the past. And then they can click on the details. So here's an example of one that was closed out already, where the big green tag will indicate to me that it's closed. I've got this check mark that says resolution with some text underneath it that's essentially showing me or explaining to me, hey, this is why the city staff went ahead and closed this out. So it's definitely a useful tool. We have over, I think it's like 75 municipalities just in the state of California that use this solution. So if you look around to some of your neighbors, you might find an app that kind of looks familiar in terms of the layout and some of the functions. Also, just as an example, here is the email that I got when I submitted this. Dear Kevin, we assure you a positive experience. We appreciate the opportunity to assist you. And it gives me a little summary of what it is that I submitted and even an expectation of when I could think that this request might get handled. So these are the types of things that are going to have. It's definitely great for customer service. There is a second citizen-facing piece as well, because getting folks on the app would be fantastic, but we also are always going to have people still visit the website. And we want to make sure we can, provide them service there and not have to tell them, hey, you need to go download an app. So that's what you're seeing here. This is your website. And this piece right here is actually from our software. And literally it's a duplicate of all those topics for submission that were available in the app. And I can, expand and collapse the categories and browse through them. Or I could go ahead and search, like if I search for pothole, that starts to come up. If I search for the word code, I get an article about the municipal code. So there's all sorts of things built in here. So if I was to go ahead and choose an abandoned vehicle complaint, here's what doing a request through the web would look like, where I see the map with the boundary, where I can certainly, kind of zoom in if I need to be able to do that and drag and drop the pin. You can even drag the little street view guy over if you want to kind of really pinpoint, where on the street this issue is located. This will allow me to do that and kind of place the pin appropriately. Fill out the rest of my information, go ahead and, add my photos or attachments if I had those available here on my desktop, or maybe I was doing this through my phone if I didn't know the app existed, and click submit. And I'll get the automated email. I'll get the email notice when it closes. And yeah, at the end of the day, this is definitely going to be a really awesome tool for request submission. And then kind of the last piece to mention of this is the citizen notification part. So once you have the app in everyone's hands, and I'm just using my example app here to show you a couple messages, the city will now be able to push out mass alerts. So there's going to be the ability on the staff side to create a message, whether it's for like a road closure or a COVID update or an event announcement or whatever it happens to be, and send it out, and it'll go to anyone that has the My Ojai app in real time as a push notification through your app. It also goes out via email and can push to social media. So someone can get a road closure notification that looks something like this delivered right to their device. And it's super easy to use. I think the staff has picked it up really well from what I understand, talking to my coworker that's kind of working with them to train on it. And it's just a great tool. And then of course there's, a whole staff facing part of this as well that really promotes like the streamlining of working on these things, having things in a centralized place. As a city council, I would say one of the biggest benefits outside of the kind of citizen, customer service angle is your ability now to get data. Once everything's under one roof, you can really start to get a feel for where we're spending our time, where we have certain types of issues. James would be able to go in the system now and say, pull a report of all the potholes that were filled last year, and even say, where were they, and show it on a map represented with pins, or to find out any requests that are still open because maybe we're waiting on something. So these are all things that will be unlocked, and really looking forward to working with you on it. Really excited that it's launching, and I'll definitely open up for any questions if anyone has any.
I have a question.
Sure.
May I, Mayor Sticks?
Go
May I-
ahead. Sure.
How does this work for time-sensitive situations? Is there like some way, or would that person just use a more old-fashioned method like picking up the phone? Or is there like a little button that says, urgent or?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So it's a great question. So, there's a couple disclaimers throughout the app that just remind people that this is not an emergency services app. And for all emergencies, that we should still always dial 911. The idea here is to take things that would have been phone calls and represent them with a digital submission for both parties' best concern. The staff, when they take phone calls, will still be able to enter things in here. So to answer it directly, there is no, hey, I need this done more quickly button or anything like that. But we would hope that the types of things coming in here, are being seen faster. There is the ability to escalate internally. So if it is identified by the staff as something that maybe needs to go a little quicker, there is the ability to kind of find it and surface it.
Okay, it sounds like staff is looking at this on a regular basis. So say someone notices their neighbor is cutting down an oak tree. You wouldn't call 911 normally, but could they get a response on I'm just trying to give an example.
Sure. So let's say someone notices that someone's cutting down an oak tree. If they want, it depends on, I guess, what time of day and when and what your procedure is. If that was happening, if you're trying to have someone come stop them immediately, your best bet might be to call. Staff are looking at this, I believe. The way it works, ma'am, is that every type of thing that can be submitted has a predetermined staff member that gets assigned to it. And when one comes in, there's actually an automated email that's going to be delivered to that staff person to go ahead and let them know, hey, there's been a new issue submitted to you. So it might look something like this. Let me just pull this over. So they're going to get a real-time email that says, hey, you've been assigned a new request, and it'll tell them where it's located and show them the photos that were submitted with it, and then give them a link to get into all of the details for it. So there will be people that are notified. Now, of course, then the procedure of what you do with these will dictate kind of how quickly that happens. That's an interesting scenario that you're describing. Even a phone call might not guarantee somebody's able to go over there right that second. So that one's a little tough for me to say either way, but generally speaking, that is how it works.
Yeah, and I'll just add on real quick, Kevin, that all of our standard responses and communication techniques are in place. So if somebody has an urgent item that they want to call City Hall for, they still can, but they don't have to if they don't want to, because of this app and the software. They can simply take a picture and upload it, or they can still call us the old-fashioned way. So.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Bill, you have a question? Brandy?
Yeah, how does this integrate with public transit?
Public transit is in like, are you saying like the trolley?
Mm-hmm.
So we have the way it's integrated with the trolley right now is it's fairly simple. Is we have a link to the trolley website through the app. So if you go into the app right now as we're speaking, there's a trolley link, and you can click on it and it takes you to the trolley website. So, for some of those services, this is a portal to get you there. So you don't have to remember 20 different websites. But as of right now, it doesn't have any, you can't buy your ticket through the app. That's not a function yet. Although we are working with the transit system to start rolling out some of that functionality, hopefully coming up soon too.
Yeah, why I asked that is Gold Coast and the VCTC are all integrating their bus passes and their ability to transfer interactively throughout the county.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if that was something that we were looking forward to, or that we had access to someone who needed to take the trolley from the east end to the west end, and from the west end, Gold Coast, from Gold Coast into Ventura, and so forth. So
yeah, we've talked to them about making those improvements to the trolley, so we're working on it. And then once we're able to, if we don't have all the details yet on exactly how it's going to work, but if if we're able to put that function on our website, people would then be able to do it through this, through the app and the portal. So.
And then one more follow-up question is, I know that Kevin, I believe is the demonstrator, talked about when an incident is reported. My question would be, how do we know how fast the incident has been repaired? Or what's the process for what corrective measures have been taken? So we call in with the pothole on the 5733 Drown on May 12th. And are we trying to create some type of a response mechanism that potholes are fixed within 3 days, or this is fixed within 5 days, or is that a part of the system, or do you see that coming down the road?
Yeah, so I know Kevin can explain what the system does, but the short answer is right now, one of the cool things about this software that I really liked, and we've been meeting with the supervisors, and I think that everybody's realizing the benefits, is that it tracks those issues that have been requested. And so I am looking at on my screen right now, I have the ability to see all of the issues that have been reported for all the different departments, similar to this list here. And I can go in there and see how many days the requests have been submitted. And just for the record, Kevin's showing you
This is a demo site. This is
a
not
demo
real.
site. So
Yes.
we don't have any 60-day-old ones, just for the record.
Should have said that.
But so it shows us how many days. I'm able to go in and see, it has tracking. It shows who the last person that worked on it was. It shows who else has been in the kind of in the chain there. So it actually will really help, not just on the resident end, but on the internal tracking end. So we met today, James Hahn and I were training supervisors on this, where they're going to be able to track the ones in their departments. I'm going to be able to see the ones across all the departments, and we'll actually be able to really, see when a request came in and when responses, were given, and what those timelines are. So.
Oh, incredible.
Great. This is
Any
quite a
other-
benefit.
Yep.
Yeah, Mayor
Bill?
Sticks, I have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
Kevin, first of all, thank you very much. I'm impressed with the functionality, the potential for improving our limited staff productivity, the improvement in customer service to our citizens, and your consideration of affordability. Thank you again very much.
No problem.
Quick question. How robust is this system for those bad actors in the dark web that might want to crash the system? A lot of these types of front ends now have these, I'm not a robot screens. I'm not saying we need that kind of thing, but if somebody wants to do mischief on this app, do we have some protections built in?
Sure. So 2 quick answers to that would be, 1, just our system as a whole. We only work with government entities, so there's a certain level of security that we need to adhere to with how we host it. Everything's hosted in Amazon Web Services. And we have some additional step ups in terms of what we actually utilize for the tools above what the standard would be for that. And then the second thing would be regarding potential abusive users, which is usually a concern for folks when they roll this out. But in all transparency, it's very rare.
Okay.
Typically, it's almost the opposite, where it takes a little promotion to let people know this exists and have good experiences to build it up. If there was that, we do have the ability to block users by IP address. So if there was abuse coming from a specific place, not legitimate requests, or we just felt that they were a little quirky and we felt like we should make a call there is the ability to go ahead and control that by the actual.
So if there was a certain IP address that decided to write a macro to automate some complaints just to, make a point, we could stop.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Am I the only council member that doesn't know how to set this up on my own phone yet? Or do the rest of you know it and can show me if I come over?
I'll help you, Souza. It's
Thank
really easy, actually.
For what it's worth, I just submitted a request and I already got a response.
Yeah, I just saw it come in.
You're welcome to chill out if you need to, James. I've been, they trimmed the trees in front of my place like 3 months ago and left the cones there. So that was officially the first request from one of us, was to get the cones.
There it is.
There you go.
Second. You were second. We got one about 30 seconds before you.
Second.
It's incredible.
So James, one final thought on this too. There's going to be a lot of things that the citizens might turn in, or even council members might turn in, that we're going to generate a work order, not a immediate response.
Mhm.
So, each division head is going to track that request or create the job order, and then to be able to respond to anyone who has requested, for instance, painting the rec center.
Right.
It's not going to happen overnight, but it'd sure be nice to see it painted, and it'd be nice to see when someone's going to budget for it or when it might be done. Things like that.
Well, that's actually one thing that I think this will be really helpful with, is we're going to have this record of all the different issues that we have, and we're going to be able to make, budgetary decisions based on that. I'm looking right now, and we have we've only received a few so far, but they're all potholes. And, I think we'll be surprised by how many pothole calls we get. I think that I'm seeing it in real time, that's something that comes in. I think things like the rec center, the painting of that. Yeah, we hear about that maybe once a year, but we might start getting some of these submitted and have a record of what are catching people's eyes. So
great.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. Really.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your meeting. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Wow, great. All right, well, moving on to the next item is COVID. James, you want to give us the report, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks again, James, for all the work you've done in this area, because you didn't sign up for this, and once again, pulling us through it. So appreciate it.
I'll try to keep it fairly brief today. We have a couple of slides, but we're at an interesting point. I think right now it's a little bit of the wait and see to June 15th, when the state has said that they're going to lift many of the orders. So we're kind of waiting and watching and adjusting some small things here and there, but we're kind of in that period where that's the next big step. So just as kind of a basic background right now, we've talked about this trend of the ICU numbers really dropping and capacity at the hospital and the ICU increasing with the number of people hospitalized or in the ICU dropping. So that is continuing. You can see the difference from less than 2 months ago, that the numbers keep dropping substantially. We have not had very many cases in the last 6 weeks. We've had a total of about 26, I believe that is. And I think it's 5 within the last 14 days in the 93023 zip code, which includes the city and parts of the valley. Countywide, the case rate is also dropping, with only about 1,700 or so in the last 6 weeks. And so I think the 3 important measurements that the county looks at and the state looks at when determining what tier we're in, because we're currently in the orange tier, are these 3 measurements shown here on this dashboard: the 7-day average case rate, the 7-day testing positivity rate, and then the health equity 7-day testing positivity rate. And for the last few meetings that we've had, we've been in the yellow tier on 2 of the 3 categories. The only category we're not on yellow tier is the 7-day average case rate. We'd have to get below 2 cases per 100,000 to drop to yellow, but it's getting closer. We were at 2.6, I think, a month ago when we met, and we were at 2.4 2 weeks ago, and we are at 2.2 now. So people probably heard the news that LA was moving into yellow tier. Ventura County is not far from that. So I think what we'll see over the next couple weeks, I think we will likely move to yellow tier, and then it'll be that gap between when that happens in June 15th, where things kind of change over again. So for now, we've been orange tier for a while, and those are probably the next two steps over the next 30 days or so. And what that means, I know we talk about tiers a lot, but what it means is each tier that opens up, that the restrictions get a little bit more, a little less restrictive. And so on April 15th, which we have not done a COVID update since then, because we had our meeting, our last meeting went long, and we pushed this item. But what changed since then is gatherings were increased. The size of gatherings that were allowed were increased, where orange tier, which is what we're currently in, can have now 50 person gatherings. Yellow tier, which we may be in the next couple of weeks if we continue, would have up to 100 person gatherings. Outdoors and indoors under orange tier, we're allowed to have 25% capacity. In yellow tier, it'll be 50% capacity. Which is still, when we get to one of the slides today, we'll talk about our upcoming council meetings. And one of the challenges we have with our very small council chambers is 25% capacity essentially means only the city council and a couple of staff people can fit into our chambers. But as it starts to open up on yellow tier, and then especially on June 15th, we'll get to a point where we can actually have more people in that space. So another item for Ojai are the private events that a lot of people, have conferences, weddings, receptions, other events here. That has opened up a little more as well, where outdoor private events can have up to 100 people or up to 300 people if vaccinated. Indoor events can be 150 people if those people are tested or vaccinated. Yellow tier, those numbers both increase as well to 200 people outdoors or 400 people if tested or vaccinated. Lastly, I think for us, there's a lot of time spent on the guidelines on indoor events and performances. We don't have a whole lot of those, but the short answer is, since most of our venues that would have indoor performances are in the smaller category, there's a maximum of 15% capacity for those smaller venues under orange tier and 25% capacity in yellow tier. But the one that I think is important for us, because we tend to have a lot of them, and it's part of our being fortunate with good weather, is outdoor live events can have 33% capacity in orange tier. So for example, an event at the Bowl, which has a capacity of a little over 1,000, could have 330 people at the Bowl, and probably actually more if the lawn was utilized. Which is definitely, it's the move to orange tier makes it where having an event at the Bowl is finally, I think, realistic again. But the move to yellow tier will increase that to 67% capacity, or about 670 people. And then the June 15th change, if the state lifts the orders, the restrictions as expected, would be capacity could actually be full capacity, but face coverings would be required. And so I think that's what we're going to see over the next couple of months as we move orange tier to yellow tier to the June 15th date. So essentially, people have asked a lot this week about, is art in the park coming back? And the answer to that is, under the current guidelines, outdoor markets and outdoor events are able to be held. And so we're reviewing their COVID protocols, but that event would be able to move forward under the current guidelines. So I think quickly, there was a lot of confusion last week. The Department of Public Health issued new face covering guidance, and essentially it said that if you're a vaccinated person and you're only around vaccinated people, that you can be you can start not wearing your mask in different settings. The reality in Ojai, what we're kind of reminding people and asking people is, when you're walking down Ojai Avenue or through the arcade on a weekend and you're around other people, you start getting into crowds, you're really not going to know if the people around you have been vaccinated or not. So what we've suggested for the last few months, we're continuing to suggest, which is this bolded section, which is anytime you can't maintain distancing from other groups, we're asking people to continue to wear masks or face coverings. But that does mean if you're out on the trails and you're exercising, you don't need to wear them. If you're on the bike trail and you're not around people, you don't need to wear them. If you're walking in areas where there's not other people around you, you would not need to wear them in those situations. So we showed this new guidance from the Department of Public Health to kind of illustrate it's fairly complicated, but that's the rule of thumb to take away from that recent update. So, and then as mentioned earlier, California and Governor Newsom have stated that they aim to fully open on June 15th, as long as there's vaccine availability that's sufficient and there's a low case rate. And both of those things are on track at this point. They did state that the masking or face covering will remain. So that leads to some of the issues to discuss here in Ojai. One for us is the City Hall hours, or City Hall availability and City Council meetings. Our current status of City Hall is we're open by appointment. We did that so that people can make their appointments and know that they can come in and there won't be a group of people or a crowd of people there. It helps us manage kind of that traffic flow. And so we're currently operating that way. We actually do get a pretty good number of appointments and a good number of people coming in each day. And so we are planning to keep that in place through June 15th, with the plan to reopen without appointments on June 16th. And we're going to be installing things like the plexiglass shields, and we've started to install those already in some of the public areas. The temperature scanners, and then requiring face coverings when indoors at City Hall. And then for council and commission meetings, as we know, we're in one right now that currently we're holding them virtually via Zoom. On June 16th, which would be a planning commission meeting, they'd be the first one. We are planning to start what we're calling hybrid meetings, which will have allow a limited capacity in chambers, but will continue to allow a Zoom option for those that would like to attend remotely. And we anticipate that there will likely be audience members that still want to call in, and some commissions, probably some of the commissioners as well. So we're planning to try to make that work for the time being so that people can do whichever they're comfortable with. So that is the current plan. People may have seen the VC Star, Ventura County Star, put an article out this weekend that listed what each city is doing. And it is kind of, there's a wide range with some cities that have reopened because they don't get, I've spoken to them, and the short answer is they don't get very many people in either council meetings or at City Hall. So they're not necessarily worried about having groups of people in the small spaces. And then there's some others that are not planning to reopen at this time. They haven't set a date. So we're planning to continue with the by appointment access to City Hall, with the plan to reopen on June 16th. So we have that. Let me go to this item and then I'll jump back. But the other thing we've been getting a lot of calls and questions about are about upcoming events in Ojai. As I mentioned earlier, the Art in the Park, we are currently reviewing their application, but under the current county guidance, those would that would be allowed as an outdoor open air market. So we are reviewing that now, but and it's scheduled for May 29th and May 30th. Similarly, the Ventura County Potters Guild is operating the same way as an outdoor art marketplace, so we're reviewing that application as well. The 4th of July fireworks and parade, we've been working with Caltrans and the county, and at this time, the Caltrans and the county would not issue the encroachment permit for the parade yet, but that's expected to change on June 15th. Essentially, everybody at this point is waiting for the state guidance to make that change. So at this time, the parade, we've got a lot of questions of if the parade's been approved. It has not been approved yet because the Caltrans permit can't be issued until at least June 15th is what we were told. The first concert by Sterling, we met with Sterling last week. Again, as we went through earlier, the guidance allows outdoor events at a reduced capacity, and by June 15th, it may not even be a reduced capacity, but we've met with Sterling and we've told them that they may, that they can start planning their events. We may have to limit capacity based on the state guidelines at that time, but they have planned the first concert for July 17th. We're planning several smaller events for the centennial celebration. We're going to try to do several smaller events to limit crowds in that situation. The music festival has been postponed to September 16th through 19th. And Ojai Day, for Ojai Day, we are working on a scaled down local focused Ojai Day. So we're hoping to be able to do a smaller local Ojai Day this year. So those are the events that we have been getting questions about. So we just wanted to provide an update, and obviously any feedback or direction that council has on that, we can discuss as well. I'll quickly go through two other things. One is just a reminder that the vaccine clinic has been extended through on Saturdays only through May 22nd. They'll be offering Pfizer vaccines at Nordoff, and that has been extended for the next 2 weeks. And then, as noted in the staff report, we currently have several executive orders in place. We were, with June 15th about a month away, we were recommending that we discuss the executive orders and timing for which ones that we wanted to, which ones that the city council would want to leave in place or not leave in place at this time, are as of June 15th. And so certain ones, this slide has brief summaries of each order, but certain ones like Executive Order 2002 was a face covering requirement, which now the state, that was put in place before the state's face covering requirement. Now the state's is in place and the state has said it will remain in place. So that is an order that we may, the city council may not, may wish to remove. That order also includes a planning and building permit extension for 180 days. The challenge with that was when it was initially drafted over a year ago, you know, I think the consensus was that this emergency situation would likely last a month or two. Or I shouldn't say that. It would probably, I think the thought at that point was that it would last a few months to maybe 6 months. Obviously, it's lasted a lot longer than that. So, so by lifting this order, we could also talk about timing for expiring some of these outstanding permits. Some of the other orders, like we created Ojai specific business protocols. Since that time, the state and county created theirs, so it's no longer needed. So we recommend removing or ending that order. The order 2001 and 2004 are the eviction moratoriums. So we could discuss those if desired. 2005 is the no fee permits for outdoor seating. 2006 is expanded face covering requirements, which we also recommend lifting at this time because the state's order remains in place. And Executive Order 2007 is a reduced fee for outdoor fitness classes. And so those are the existing executive orders, which we could discuss if desired by the city council. So, and so with that, I know there was a lot covered today, but with that, that is the COVID update for this week.
Mayor Sticks?
Thank you, James. Yeah, questions for staff?
I had a question, Mayor Sticks. James, I want to make sure I understand.
Mhm.
On June 15th, the intent is to, does that also mean by reopening, doing away with all tiers?
Yes.
And so that would mean that any residual or trailing stipulations, COVID-specific stipulations, would just simply be applied to all locations in the whole state, regardless of any metrics. So, and we're not, and my other understanding is that we're still not clear what those stipulations might be.
Yes, and the latest that we've heard, so this was announced about 6 weeks ago by the state and Governor Newsom, and there hasn't been much detail given since then, other than the phrase that California will fully reopen its economy on June 15th. But so the consensus when we've talked about this at a county level and with the other cities in the county is that our assumption at this point is that on June 15th, all of the tiers will be lifted and it will be back to just fully reopened, no restrictions other than you'll have to wear a face covering when indoors.
And the one other restriction that we expect the state to maintain in place is certain capacity limits on large events, well
Right.
beyond the capacity in Ojai. And to do that, we expect the state to maintain some kind of an emergency declaration in place to create the framework for that. The details of that, Newsom has kept close to the vest and we haven't gotten much beyond press releases. But in by large events, I mean things like conventions of 10,000 and more people. That's what we expect him to maintain restrictions on. But the details the state's not been forthcoming.
Randy, I just quick comment, I'll be done, okay? Let's also not forget, we have a unique advantage in our council chambers, those side doors.
Mhm.
We can almost make it an outdoor venue in terms of ventilation.
Yeah.
And we have had situations where, where we have capacity problems, people sit out there in that patio. So let's not forget, we can to take advantage of that, okay?
Question, Randy?
Well, the question is, do we want to direct this, the city manager to remove 02, 03, 05, 06, and 07 from these protocols, and also notify all businesses, as well as publicly notify the Ojai Valley News and make a statement as to what we're doing?
And that would be as of June 15th, Randy?
Pardon me?
As of June 15th?
I'm not necessarily,
Okay.
I don't think we need to do it by June 15th. I think we can do it I think we can do it now, because we have state and county mandates that are, like James said, that are taking its place. So I have no problem doing that now.
Yeah, I don't either, actually.
Any other questions before? Do we have any public comments on this, Gail?
No, we had somebody in the queue, but that person left.
Okay.
I
all
have,
right.
I have a question. I think I'm understanding what Bill and Randy have recommended. I just want to make sure that I just want to be clear that includes there's still a moratorium on evictions until June 15th.
And we didn't remove that. That's still in place.
Okay, it's in place via the state mandate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that one clarification there, Councilmember Francina, the state mandate is to June 30th, I believe. Under existing legislation, separate from the governor's actions. So 2 more weeks.
That makes sense.
There is no state mandate on commercial evictions.
That is correct, only residential.
If you're talking, depends which kind you're talking about, Susan.
It's time.
So what are you recommending, Randy?
That from these protocols that we have, that we remove 02, 03, 05, 06, 07, that we notify all existing businesses that are affected by these, and that we publish what we're doing in the Ojai Valley News so that we communicate clearly with the citizens of Ojai what we're doing and what existing mandates are guiding us, the county and the state mandates. So
Are
that
you,
would be, that's a motion or that's a direction. I'm not sure. Matt, should it be a motion or should it just be direction and then voted on by council?
If the council wishes to, it would be a motion and a second, although my clarification question is, are you excluding numbers order 2001 and 2004, which collectively are the evictions moratoriums?
Yes.
Okay.
I need more clarity before I vote. You did say we would be notifying the business, how the businesses would be affected. Is there any, what's the difference whether we leave this in place or remove it? What's the actual reality difference? Why, is there a problem with just leaving it as is?
So there's a variety of orders, so it's hard to talk about them like all at one time, but like, let's take a couple as examples. So like the reduced fee for the outdoor fitness classes. There's no, so the question is, right now we're dedicating park space at specific times for, we have about 6 or 7 outdoor fitness classes that are using this low fee opportunity to do outdoor exercise classes. So the question just becomes, you know, is it time to end that, or are we okay with it continuing? And it really is like a case by case on each of these orders, but that, you know, that's, it just depends on your perspective. You know, if you don't have any issues with dedicating some of the park space to these outdoor classes, then you may be fine with it continuing. Or if you want to, you know, kind of restore the park to what it used to be and not have, like, you know, spaces being marked off and used for these classes, then you may want it to end. So it really,
By the way,
boils
since
down
we're
to
supposed
that.
to have a seconded motion on the table before discussing it, I'm seconding his motion.
Well, my point is that June 15 is only a month away.
Mhm.
Why would we make life harder for anyone, especially fitness instructors who make very little money as it is usually? I wouldn't want to change that.
I would advocate holding on to that. That's 07, and also the outdoor dining, because it's just a really great thing and we're all benefiting from that, and it's really good to be outside. So
Yeah.
I would exclude those two. What do you think about that? Or maintain those two, rather?
I would like to maintain outdoor
I
dining.
completely agree with you. I don't, and I'm still confused. Are we trying to do this now, or are we trying to do it on June 15th or June 30th?
Well, the rest, you know, it's a ton of liability for us to maintain this. So we're basically saying, you know, we're going to follow as of June 15th. We'll find out what the governor is going to say, and therefore the state will have the liability, correct?
Yeah. The original idea was, what we were trying to do was, with June 15th being about a month away, trying to make the decision so that we could notify people and the newspaper, as Councilmember Haney mentioned, early, so that so nobody's caught off guard on June 15th. So, so I think that's what I would recommend. And you know, the question is which ones to leave in place, which ones to end and notify people that they're ending, and which ones to leave in place.
Well, and when you say, just to clarify, when you say ending, we're ending our own because we are the state, we're following the state protocols, right?
Right. Like the face covering requirements, the you know, the easy example there where, you know, we did it because nobody had done it, but now the state's done it. So ours is not necessarily necessary at this point.
I see this as mayor. I see this as an opportunity to condition ourselves into getting back to some form of normalcy. And these fictitious dates of June 15th or the following date or the following date, that to me is what they are. This is going to be a notification. It'll be a slow movement. So to Susan's concern, it's not something that I don't see happening overnight. It's going to be a gradual removal of these conditions that we as a city have placed on our citizens. So I don't see anything cold turkey. I see it being something very gradual. So in other words, if someone already has filled out their petition for the use of the park for this month, they're going to have the use of the facility. It's not like it's going to end. So and on June 1st, when that arrives, that's something that James can look at too. So to me, what we're doing is just we're removing these minor obstacles that we put in place. We're going to allow the state and the county to play their role. I also think it removes from the businesses the confusion of what does Ojai want, what does the county want, and what does the state want. So we're removing ourselves from that discussion to the best of our ability. We're returning to some form of normalcy. But we are keeping in place, I feel, the important things, and that's these evictions of especially residential folks. That's going to be something that's going to hit a lot of people very, very hard if and when that happens or how it happens. So that's my jest on it. It can go either way. If you two would like to amend my motion, I'm in total agreement. I wanted you to know where I was coming from on this.
Well, if the motion includes, rather than doing it all at once on June 15, we're going to make people aware of what's going on, and it's just gradual, and it's not going to be a hardship.
Right, that's the whole idea behind it, is the notification and the interaction. And that's one of the things that the chamber has really done well with us. When COVID started, how we introduced what we were trying to achieve through the small businesses. And that's just another venue that they can help us out with, as well as, again, notifying it through the Ojai Valley News, publicizing what we're trying to do. And again, at the same time, thanking the community for all that they've done and all that they've endured for the last year. I'm sure there's going to be a big sign of relief from them saying, good, let's move forward. But let's still move forward safely.
Bill?
Randy, would you accept a friendly amendment that the motion would add to the motion a phased engagement at the city manager's discretion?
Absolutely.
Yes, okay, that sounds.
That's fine.
Well, and what about maintaining the outdoor fitness and the outdoor dining? That would be 05 and 07.
It's the same thing. It's just it's a soft phase.
Okay.
It's not gonna harm them.
It's the soft phase in, yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry. Can someone tell me what the motion is then? Where we have dates, but they're not being enforced. Really, what we're saying is that James can just decide when he wants to lift these whenever he decides he wants to.
Well, they're emergency orders, Ryan. That's, we're empowering him to start to unwind.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the addition of James's discretion. I'm very comfortable with that. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're doing. We're saying that whenever James decides, he can lift these restrictions.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter.
I think what I'm hearing, so I guess,
June 15th.
yeah, I can explain as far as what I'm hearing is, I think what we would say is we would notify people that as of June 15th, these orders are ending, but that they have the option to contact us to discuss options, and that's where that phase in would occur, where if a business did contact us or an outdoor fitness class contacted us, that we would try to work with them on that case-by-case basis. That's how I'm interpreting that. So,
yeah.
So a restaurant doesn't necessarily have to close its outdoor dining by June 15th, but they need to contact you to discuss it. Is that? I mean, there's got to be some clarity.
That's the notice we would send out is, that the program ends June 15th, but contact us if you want to continue, basically.
And I also think another part of this is actually educating them now on the state and the county guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not aware, they're aware going into it as of June 15th, these are going to be the guiding guidelines.
Yeah.
Although one point to note is that the state has nothing to say about outdoor dining
Right.
I'm just saying how they interact with any of the policies that we've created through the executive order.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think we need to articulate it clearly so everybody understands, but what we're saying is all of these will stay in place until at least June 15th. But is there some discretion on, I mean, some of these, like the eviction moratoriums, we can't leave to James's discretion. I mean,
But they're not included, Ryan.
okay, well, that was not clear. All of them were included when we said the discretion.
No,
I did not include those.
Randy
My
did not include the eviction moratoriums in this motion.
My understanding of the motion is that it was to, as of June 15th, with direction to provide notice ahead of time, lift orders 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, leaving in place orders 1 and 4.
Right.
And so in English, that'd be 2 is the face coverings and land use entitlement protections lifted. 3 is the COVID protocols and outdoor exercise lifted. 5 is outdoor dining lifted. 6 is the additional face covering order lifted. 7 is the low fee outdoor recreation classes lifted. 8 is the outdoor retail operations lifted. That's the motion. Left in place would be 1, residential evictions protections, and 4, commercial evictions protections, for those to be considered at a later date. And then 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 to be lifted. With the lifting effective June 15th, city manager empowered to allow additional extensions on a limited case-by-case basis for any reason valid under law. And my recommendation would be that the motion be to direct the city manager to write all that up in an appropriate order, reflecting, that'll probably be order number 9, repealing those orders with associated stipulations.
And the associated notifications.
Correct.
The only thing I'd add is it should probably be technically conditioned upon the state actually lifting those restrictions on June 15th, because that could change.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
If the state actually does what it says it's going to do. Right.
Yeah.
All right. No,
Good point, Ryan.
I think that's clear.
Thanks, Ryan. Sorry. Oh, that's not me. All right. Okay, may we get a vote, please, Gail?
Councilmember Francina,
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick,
Yes.
Mayor Sticks,
Yes.
Councilmember Haney.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And once again, James, thank you so much for navigating us through this really challenging time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, on that note, let's move on to the budget.
I keep telling myself it's the last PowerPoint, and then we call the next item, and it's another PowerPoint. But I'll power through it. Let's see. So as crazy as it sounds, we're here today with our first budget workshop of the year. Obviously, we had scheduled this a couple times, and we had a long meeting, and we had the power outage meeting, so it got bumped. But we wanted to, we're going to kind of put the full court press on and have the first budget workshop tonight, the second one next meeting, and the third one the following meeting. So we're going to try to really get through it. And we're starting with tonight. So this is our first budget workshop of this fiscal year. The second workshop next week will be on capital improvement projects and the Measure C fund, with a potential third workshop the following week. And so we wanted to start just quickly by kind of giving the big picture overview. It's a strange year. I think that we're going to say that a lot and hear that a lot as we start to work through the budget. Normally, when we start the budget, we start off by saying, here's what it would cost next year to do the same things as this year, because costs inevitably go up. And so, and then, you know, do we have enough money to do that? Can we add any service? Can we, you know, do we need to reduce any service? This year, though, is clearly not the normal year because, as we will see in a minute, we dramatically reduced service levels and expenditures last year due to the COVID-19 impacts. And so we decided not to start this budget with, at that low level, but to try to project returning to a regular service level and restoring service levels. So, and what that means, if you look, the reason throughout this forecast, we're going to show 4 years of numbers, and that's for a reason. The reason being, although COVID's only been about 14 months, it's actually impacting its 3rd fiscal year. And what we mean by that is this proposed fiscal year, we're still seeing some impacts because the revenues that we are projecting of 10.5 million are still down from the last year that was pre-COVID. And so normally when we look at this chart, you'd see the number 4 years ago and it'd be $11 million, and every year would go up a little bit. That's kind of how it's been historically in Ojai. But we've had we have not had that happen, where in fiscal year 2019-20, the last 3 months were impacted by COVID. So the revenues dropped almost $800,000. This year that we are currently in, the whole year has been impacted by COVID. We've had multiple shutdowns, so revenue's been impacted a lot more than that. What we show here is $9.5 million, which is $1.5 million drop from 2 years prior. But it's actually even more severe than that, because that $9.5 million includes almost $1 million of quote unquote COVID funding that we have not received yet, but we're expecting to receive by the end of the year. And so without that, we'd be even further reduced down to about 8.6 million or so. And so again, when we started budgeting this year, we didn't start with that record low. We tried to start at what we thought was realistic for next year as things improve. And so what we're projecting is $10.5 million in revenue, which is still down from normal levels, but it's higher than what we've seen in the last 2 years, where we've been more severely impacted by COVID. And I think if the reopening on June 15th does occur for the most part, that we should start to see kind of normalizing revenues. And so so we kind of start with that, we're trying to project out what we think a reasonable year looks like, and we're thinking it's good and better than the last couple of years, but not quite normal. And so when we start budgeting expenses, we also have had those, we've had to reduce those to try to stretch out our reserves. And you can see that this year that we're currently in, we had really cut expenses. And that's why we had talked a few times about our worst case scenario this year would be that we'd use up a substantial portion of our reserves. And we have not used up as many of those reserves as we had feared. But it's not because of good luck or anything. It's just that we made pretty severe reductions early on in this to get through this. And you could see if we receive the emergency funding that we're expecting, that we would actually end up having some surplus, but we haven't received it yet. We don't have a date that we're expecting to receive it yet. And we know that the funding that we are going to receive, we're going to receive it later than other cities around us, because small cities are having to go through the state, which adds at least 30 days to the process. So if that funding doesn't come in this year, even with all of the cuts we made, we would be at a deficit this year. Not a huge deficit thanks to all those reductions, but it's still a deficit. And so, don't let the bottom line fool you where it looks like we actually, had built the reserve this year. That's not the case yet, and it would only happen if we're able to receive all of those emergency funds. And so, what we're expecting with the Emergency American Rescue Plan Act is $650,000 in this fiscal year, which is what puts us above water here. and then 650,000 next year. And so even with the 650,000 next year, it's going to be a tight budget where we are projecting right now with the expenditures that we're proposing and the positions we're proposing. We're expecting to have about $150,000 shortfall next year. And so I guess that's a long way of saying, by looking at this chart, is what we're projecting is kind of returning to more normal levels than what we've seen the last 2 years. When we talk about the revenues and how we're projecting those normalizing, there's the big three revenues that we should talk about, which is our property tax, hotel tax or TOT, and sales tax. We wanted to just quickly kind of go through those so that everybody understands what our projections are based on. The last pre-COVID year, property tax was about 1.95 million. This year, we're projecting 2.04 million. Property tax, it's a 2% increase. And the reason being, property tax was the one tax that was actually fairly stable during COVID. The other taxes, as we'll see in a minute, all reduced substantially, but property tax was pretty stable, and we project it will continue to be. Hotel
James, I have
tax.
a question on property tax when it's appropriate before we go on.
Yeah.
Is now okay?
Sure.
Okay. On the property tax, I continue to be, I wish you could give me more insight in how the projected actual for fiscal year ending 21, current fiscal year, would go down from the previous fiscal year, unless some of that is reflecting deferred collections.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that is reflecting, as deferred collections?
Yes. So obvious, like, I think everybody's assumption and what I heard throughout the pandemic was like, well, house prices are still rising, so property tax will keep going up. But the reality is, even though you don't really hear about it, but the reality is there are more people not paying their property tax this year.
So that's either payment in arrears that may get recaptured in future fiscal years rather than an actual reduction in the tax base. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I think, one thing I'll note real quick on this is we just got a tax payment just like last week, and we had put all these numbers together before that. So this number actually was a little higher than we were fearing, but it was still, I think it was like 1.98, which is still a drop from the prior year. So
does the city get a cut of the penalties and interest on payments and arrears at all?
I'm not sure. That's something I could look into. I'm not sure.
I was going to ask that same question, Bill.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we got a percentage of that.
I'll follow up on that, because that could be something that would impact our projections.
Okay.
The city should get a portion of those, at least as to the interest. The penalties is that's not what I know off the top of my head. One point to note on property tax collections is that in the end, the funds are almost always paid because they're secured by the property.
Right.
But it can take as long as 5 years, because the county's policy is that upon someone falling behind, a property owner falling behind in their taxes, it gets put on the lien list 5 years from the first time, then it gets put on the sale list, and then it's sold through a process. So it almost always gets collected in the end, but that can be a long process. And that's not, unfortunately, one that we don't have the ability to accelerate faster. It is dependent upon the county.
So that's property tax. For hotel tax, again, looking at the 4-year trend is important because of seeing the pre-COVID numbers. Pre-COVID for hotel tax, we were up to 3.7 million in hotel tax. When in 1920, when those last 3 months of the year from March on got hit with COVID and we had the shutdown, that number dropped down to just under 3 million. This year, because we've had multiple shutdowns, including when we started the budget process, we were in the midst of one, which ended, feels like a long time ago, but it ended March 15th, I believe. And so the number this year has dropped even further to 2.59 million. We do think that this year was the low mark and that next year we'll start recovering. And so we projected 2.8 million or so next year. Now, I think one thing that we've noted is from March 15th to now, I think that the outlook has changed for the positive. I think on March 15th, we still didn't know if there was going to be another wave, if the vaccine was going to roll out fast enough. Now I think we're feeling more confident in that. So the finance director and I both talked and realized this could be an area where people, where there may be a feeling that we're maybe being a little too conservative. But I also think that the reality is the hotel tax is so prone to this particular pandemic that it's also something we should probably be conservative on. Because I don't think when we started, we expected to have, multiple shutdowns like we have. So this is one area where, as things improve, this number may well, go back closer to the 1920 level. So
it's worth noting that one of the constraints on the inn, the Ojai Valley Inn, is the staffing problems. The thing that's being discussed nationwide. They probably would have. They're actually operating at less than what would be allowed under the current tier, because of the issue of how hard it is to get people to come back to work. Just so noting that is a confounding constraint that we didn't expect.
Yeah, and we've talked to them recently, and they're projecting staying at a reduced capacity for quite a while, for months at this point. So I think the news lately has been very positive, but it doesn't mean that our hotels are going to be back to 100% capacity. Although we know the demand's there, it's just we don't know if the hotels are going to be able to kind of ramp up that quickly. So. Sales tax, similarly, and I'll go through this quickly, but normal level pre-COVID, 1.75 million. 1920, it was on track to be a record high, but when COVID hit, it kind of stopped at the same point, 1.75 million. This year, we saw a pretty big reduction down to 1.3 million. We think that'll go back up since, again, most of our businesses were closed at different points throughout the year. So we're projecting 1.75 million again. The challenge for us this year is going to be the rule that had gone into effect about Amazon purchases and Wayfair purchases online actually resulting in sales tax to the city helped us over the last couple of years. But there's some new rules coming in that will allocate more of that revenue to the quote unquote warehouse hubs, the cities that have the warehouse hubs in them. So we think that is actually going to put some downward pressure on our sales tax this year.
So yet another discrimination against small local based cities.
Yeah.
Or cities
not
without warehouses.
Not where the address for delivery is, but where it's dispatched from. So once again, basically a subsidy for corporate industrial retail, which really undermines the character of small communities. Once again.
Yeah, so that's going to be a challenge that keeps us from exceeding what we saw a couple years ago. So then last, the new one that we implemented at the end of December is Cannabis Tax. We're going to bring a report on that, but essentially what we're receiving is about $30,000 a month, which is about $360,000 a year. And we have the policy prepared that we'll be bringing back to council, saying that any cannabis tax will be designated to build the reserves. So that's $360,000 that we would be targeting for that. So, I'm sorry. Well, I think that our updated projection will be close to 360, although the budget included here is 324. So,
is that inclusive of the manufacturing licenses recently issued?
No, and as we started this budget process, we had checked in with the cannabis manufacturing, and they didn't have an ETA, but as the city council knows, we actually ended up doing the final inspection for one last week, and they will be opening. So that is something that we will reach out to them, and that could be an adjustment we make on this as we go through the budget workshops. So motor vehicle in lieu, there's not much there, but the big one that we want to make sure everybody's aware of is that the budget as proposed does include the $650,000 that we are supposed to receive in the American Rescue Plan Act funding. So that's already built into the budget with the idea that this year, as we're kind of rebuilding, that we would use that funding to supplement our budget to start restoring the service levels. And so those were revenues. Those were kind of the big revenues that we received. Quickly, I'll go through expenditures. What's in this budget that's in front of you, that's in the packet, is there's a few main points, and one of them is that it anticipates restoring service levels back to normal levels. At various times last year, we were 7 or 8 positions out of our 28 short, and we kept those vacant to try to get through the tough budget challenges. So this budget assumes that we are restoring those positions, including we had created right before the pandemic the events and public information position that was going to work on all the various city events and PR and public information. But we never filled it because then when COVID hit, all of the different events and things were canceled. This budget proposes filling that position finally this year. And we would start, once we adopt the budget, we would start filling that position pretty quickly, because with the centennial, with Ojai Day, and with some of the different other events that are coming back, there's going to be a lot of coordination that has to happen very, very quickly. So
plus all the activities at Libby.
Yep. And so this budget assumes restoring those positions. It includes we used to transfer 20% of TOT to CIP, but with the budget challenges and with Measure C being adopted, we're proposing reducing that. And so it's included right now as a 6% transfer.
And if we exceed expectations on the revenue side, that's a place we could put money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this also includes the updated police estimate, which is a 5% increase from the current cost. So that's built into this budget. Obviously, we talked last week about looking at some options there, but that right now the 5% increase is built into the budget. And then this also includes, last year we had to take out the $100,000 prepayment of the retiree medical, which is going to help us reduce our liability long term. This year we're recommending putting it back in, so that's built into the budget, as well as we had that pension presentation a couple weeks or maybe a couple months ago at this point, and they noted that PERS rates are going up, and so those costs are also included in the budget. The budget before you also has $50,000 built in for community support. It doesn't indicate to which groups, but there's that 50,000 built in. It also includes several one-time expenses, such as a big chunk, $400,000 towards the general plan update, which we've really started to move forward on, and we're expecting to get the bulk of it done next year. It includes the $54,000 for the housing element update, which is due in October. It includes $125,000 for redistricting expenses. And since we wrote this, we got the bid in for the redistricting, which is the next item on the agenda, and it came in a little less than we had budgeted. And then it includes $100,000 of the retiree medical, as I mentioned. And then
James, are those net of the restricted fund revenues and the grant that we got for general plan update?
So the general plan update, we have received a chunk of that in grant. So that's not net, but there is some of it that is not covered by the grants yet. And we're continuing to apply for grants. I want to say that we've received about 180,000 in grants at this point. That
I
would be
thought we had
applied.
I thought we had a restricted fund for the general plan update as well.
Yes, we do. We do. And that I don't have that number off the top of my head, but that would be added to that. I think there is still we haven't funded it completely yet, but it's not $400,000 that we have.
The net hit to the operating fund will be less than that.
Yeah.
The net hit.
Yeah. I think it's probably around. We'll get that number, but I think it's around the 150 to 200,000 at this point. And we've applied for a couple other grants that we're waiting on still. And then we just got the presentation. This also includes our new smartphone app, the My Ojai app. And then we took out a contingency last year because we were trying to cut everything, but we're recommending including a contingency this year again, which we had just started to do the year prior. So this budget includes a $200,000 contingency. And so with all of those items, all those expenditures, as we showed, the draft budget right now has a $150,000 shortfall. And so as we go through the process, we will have to talk about, how we address that $150,000 shortfall. But that is the general fund. And then next workshop will be focused on the capital improvement plan projects and the Measure C, but we wanted to just, the point of this meeting and the next meeting will be to kind of paint the picture so that the council's able to discuss and prioritize. So just to kind of give you the picture, because with everything being so kind of volatile during COVID, we wanted to just kind of let you know what the framework will be for next week. When we talk CIP and Measure C, what the current budget anticipates in Measure C funding is approximately $1.4 million. Again, Measure C hasn't panned out as well as we hoped originally for the first year, but long-term, it's going to be a huge impact on continuing to allow the city to hit priority projects. And so we're projecting $1.4 million next year. And then what this chart shows is that we also have several grants and, as mentioned, some of the other things like the restricted funds that we can use to leverage those Measure C funds. And so the CIP list that we'll bring next week will actually have close to $4 million in projects. And those are projects that if the city council and the voters had not approved Measure C in a year like this, we just wouldn't be able to make progress on a lot of projects. We'd just be, reducing our budget to get by. And so when we talk at the next meeting, we'll go through what projects, I think some people probably anticipate that, things like road repairs and parking lot repairs, but also there's other projects that we want to bring, or that the city council has identified in the past that we want to bring back and prioritize for the Measure C and CIP this year.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you want, I have questions about the redistricting expenses. I heard you say that it's lower than what's here. And do you want to discuss that when we go to the consultant?
Well, I could just say right now, broadly that, so when we wrote this budget, so this budget has been on the agenda the last couple of meetings, and so we didn't want to keep tweaking it every week. But when we wrote this budget, we hadn't gotten the bids yet for the redistricting. Those bids came in last week. And so the bid that we are recommending as the next item on the agenda was $71,000. And so in our budget, we had built in $125,000 just in case. So there should be some savings there. I don't know if it'll be that full 50,000 because there may be some other costs, but there should be savings of, at least $25,000 to $30,000. So that helps start already kind of filling that gap. So.
Okay, thank you. That's good because it's already so That's such a waste of money that we have.
Yeah, none of us are happy seeing the dollar amounts on that redistricting project. I think I can say that.
Other questions, Randy?
No, I was just wondering, how do you want to proceed, Mayor?
Well, are there any more questions? Then we'll see if there's public comment. No more, any public comment, Gail?
Yes, we have 4 public commenters. I'll go ahead and bring in Mr. Miley first. Mr. Miley, you can go ahead and speak if you're unmuted. If you're muted, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
Sure. Good evening. I've looked at the budget and I appreciate all the work that was done. And I know several citizens are also involved besides council and administrator and city manager. I have a couple of small items that are important to me that I want to comment on. On page 5 and 6, under repairs and maintenance, there are 2 items. One is expenditures for park maintenance at 54,000 plus or minus. It's reduced by 54% from last year. And under tree maintenance, it's set at 58,000 plus or minus. It's reduced by 58% from last year. And then under other expenditures, it's called an expenditure for community outreach is 52,000 plus or minus. It's reduced 67% from last year. My opinion is that these 3 items are really important to our city's image and functioning, our trees, our parks, and our citizens. They're high on my value list. And since returning their funding to higher levels involves a relatively small amount of money, I hope the council will consider doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miley.
Could someone point me to the right page? I said 6. I couldn't find it.
It's the numbers that Mr. Miley was referring to are on attachment A, page 2 of 2.
Okay.
And I could briefly, if okay with the mayor, I could briefly respond to 2 of those line items, which is the parks maintenance and the tree maintenance. The reason they're reflected as reductions here are because a lot of the tree maintenance is able to be done through Measure C. So
Okay.
we're actually, and when we come back next meeting and we go through Measure C, we're actually proposing an increase in the level of tree maintenance we're doing. It's just that more of it will be covered by Measure C than by the general fund.
Oh, that's very good news.
Yeah.
Good.
That's great. All right, next public comment, Gail, please.
Next, we have Brian Akins. Okay, so Brian, you should be able to talk now. If you're muted, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
My name is Brian Akins. I am the current president of the Ojai Valley Museum. I still oversee the financials of the museum along with Wendy Barker, our executive director, our museum finance committee, and our board of trustees. On Friday, April 30th, Wendy hand-delivered our formal request for support by the city of Ojai for $50,000 for fiscal year 2022. This is lower than previous years as we all understand exactly how tough this past year has been in the large hole we are all digging out from. We, as so many others, sought all funds we could to keep your local museum functioning, as well as to be completely ready to reopen once regulations allowed. We are now open and have been since April 2nd on Fridays 1 to 7, Saturday 10 to 4, and Sundays 10 to 4. New hours on Friday and Sunday address the times most desired by visitors based on local feedback and surveys. With this new start, we changed the entrance and museum store to make it COVID compliant and immediately more inviting. We installed an updated system at our admissions desk to eliminate touch checkout as much as possible and created more distance in our displays made possible by board member donations. We upgraded our security systems to current code, Wi-Fi enabled with battery backup, this for both security and fire. While closed to the public, we also upgraded our phone system thanks to a donor. These changes eliminated some bills, saving us money every month. Working closely with the city of Ojai, repairs were made to our air conditioning systems. We are happy to partner in the cost of this with the city. Other upgrades took place behind the scenes to aid in the professionalism of our presentations and safety of staff, volunteers, and visitors. As mentioned in our request, we put up our first online exhibit as folks were precluded from the real thing. It was wonderful. Our annual meeting was also virtual with the addition of performances by wonderful artists from within our community and widely known outside the Valley. This as we seek to diversify our outreach both locally and externally. On that note, our development committee is actively bringing in guests to the committee to help us understand better those who contribute so very much to our Valley and help us in expanding our membership across the wide interests and ages within our wonderful city and community. Reaching out to the new, often younger arrivals and working to include the diversity and family they bring with them. We also mentioned our future exhibits in our application, one of which, Flora and Fauna in the Time of Climate Change, will examine a critical issue for our Valley and the world. This is anticipated to open in November and run for 4 months. Additionally, the museum is the archive of all things historic and working closely with the City of Ojai City Manager's Office, the city's Historic Preservation Commission, and a wide variety of organizations throughout the city to celebrate the upcoming 100th anniversary of the incorporation of the City of Ojai in early August. A city manager said to me in our first phone call, "It seems like it's time to celebrate." We agree. We're always available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Next, Gail.
Next, we have Christopher Dench. Mr. Dench, you should be able to speak. If you're muted, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, I'm speaking on behalf of the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council, and we have submitted our very first request to the city for community support in the amount of $50,000. But like the other applicant, we are aware of the financial situation that faces the city. But despite the COVID year, we have continued to pursue our strategy of a wildfire risk mitigation strategy, and we've done so aggressively. We have the community supported grazing program, which was postponed from last year, has been launched as of this March. It is progressing actually faster than we imagined. We have secured 5 demonstration sites and partners. We have attained about $60,000 in direct grant funding. We have another fund coming in from the State Water Resources Control Board. We plan to up that again in October. And landowners are continuing to contact us, our limitation being the ability to subsidize grazing fees and other expenses. But we have about 600 animals on the ground, and that's increasing. So we also are applying for a very large and complex CAL FIRE grant. While it has a number of projects, the 2 regional projects for the Ojai Valley, a fine scale risk mapping program and a evacuation vulnerability assessment is a big part of that grant. The overall grant is approximately $2 million in the request, but we're looking at our regional projects approaching $700,000. We're part of a large countywide collaboration that is pursuing that grant, and I think we have an excellent chance as a high-risk county and very high-risk city. And then we are planning our first public event under the guidelines. That should be in June. That'll be for the grazing program, and more about that. We're expanding our board. There are many other grant opportunities that are arising through the diversity of our programming, but we have a limitation on how much a volunteer staff can do at this point. And we have a new administrative assistant coming in that has a small amount of funding to support her from the state and from Southern California Edison. And so we want to also just initiate the first formal request to the city for a fire safe council that is moving very fast and very aggressively towards substantially mitigating wildfire risk now and into the future for the city. And we're looking for the city's support into and helping us do that. We'll be approaching the county. I've made a presentation to the county, but that is something I just haven't had the time to follow up on. So with that, there's our request. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Mayor, I have a couple questions for Mr. Dench. Chris, what's it, the grazing program? Is
Yes,
that paid for through grants or the individuals that are actually using the service?
It's a combination. So the concept of a community-supported grazing program, its main goal is to increase the use of prescribed grazing, what's called prescribed targeted grazing, to reduce fuel loads and perform other vegetation management to increase wildfire safety. So you want to increase the number of acres substantially that would otherwise not happen if left to the landowner by themselves. So it is a combination of grants, donations, landowner participation, and in the community supported aspect, we'll be launching a crowdfunding campaign to do that. So a good example would be at Besson Hill School, where we are, the ability of Besson Hill to pay is below the cost of that grazing. So we have, through grants, we have been subsidizing the grazing contract on that land around the vernal pool. We're coming up on the addition of somewhere between 40 and 60,000 from the State Water Resources Board through Resource Conservation District. Okay, but it's a combination of all of that, Randy.
Great. You're getting really deep into it, and I appreciate that. Why I asked is I was just wondering why we as a city aren't attaching ourselves to any of city-owned parcels to your program.
Good question.
That would be applicable. So I'm just wondering if that's something as a council we should discuss later on, is how to utilize that service. That's why I was wondering if there was a fee associated to it, or if it's a donation, that's something that we could look at. The second question was on the, I had it written down here,
Well, and can I ask, in terms of there aren't that many parcels within the city. All the grazing is really around the city, correct, Chris?
Well, obviously we can't do everything that's needed at this level of funding, but we are looking at focusing primarily on the grazing corridor on both sides of the city and the wildland urban interface. So we're going to prioritize those lands, and we are in the process of mapping that corridor. We have started on the edges of it through our partners of Thatcher School and Besant and some private landowners in the area. But I mean, without getting too deep in the weeds again, it's very small for small parcels to afford grazing. So we are looking for contiguous parcels that can be combined and subsidized, where the grazer can do it at a lesser cost per parcel. So, so there's lots of things, but we are targeting the corridor, vegetation corridor around the city all the way down, ultimately to like Foster Park and Casita Springs.
Right.
I was thinking small, and obviously you're thinking big. I find it interesting that Besant Hills and Thatcher can't afford it when I'm looking at all the construction and all the improvements that are taking place on those facilities.
Well,
but that's just one council.
Thatcher is paying for its full contract.
So the other thing I wanted to just quickly, the wildfire evacuation and vulnerability assessment, I think is probably one of the greatest grants that you're going after. And just, Chris, you've come to council 3 or 4 years in a row and done your presentation. And every year I come back to you saying that we need to figure out how to support you, and you need to figure out how to encumber more funds. It looks like that's what you're doing as far as all the grant writing and the fact that you need to budget for that individual. And obviously I'm going to make a motion later on this evening that we support you in this grant request. But I think what you're doing is incredible. And I think it's time that we figure out how to support you financially.
I appreciate that. Well, we do. Our partnership with the city is very important, and yes, and I, obviously we're a small mobile operation that can highly leverage any funds received.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, one more, Gail, public comment.
Yes, we have one more, and that is Jamie Fleming. Jamie, you should be able to speak now. If you're muted, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead and talk.
Great. I just want to bring up the fact that we're wrapping up our second year of MOU service contract partnership with the city. And I just feel that each year that goes by, it just keeps getting stronger, more effective. And it's just been a pleasure seeing this relationship as a working relationship build with James Vega as the city manager. And it's just great that the two of us can just pick up the phone every day and discuss any issues that are affecting businesses or things that I can do to help the city. And it's just been a pleasure to see that become stronger and stronger as we keep moving in here. As you all remember, after the Thomas fire, we had that issue where the chamber kind of disappeared. This last 12 months, we have worked very hard as a chamber to make sure nobody ever feels that the chamber was not here present as a solid partner with James Vega and the city to be out there communicating, helping with the funding outreach and getting the people set up that way, communicating protocols, developing protocols, and just doing whatever we can to keep the city feeling that there's a partner here with the city in the community reaching out. And I think you should feel just like I do, this next year is even more critical because so many businesses have either been shuttered and are trying to come back out. So many have suffered. A lot of them are still facing rent. A lot of big challenges are going to be coming over the next 6 months. The finances start hitting, in my opinion. And I think it's going to be important to have the same partnership in place to really be able to be out there communicating and supporting it. And so I just want to make sure that you know how much I really feel, and I hope that there's no doubt in your minds how much this value has really risen to the top after this last year of this COVID as to why a partnership in this contract MOU has really paid out in spades, because I see how we can now take the momentum and really help get out of COVID and help all these businesses in the community get back on its feet. So you know where my heart is. I give as much as I can to help both the chamber and the city in any way I can. And again, as I said, I look forward to working again this next year.
Mayor Sticks?
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted, Jamie, thank you very much. I really appreciate the work summary you included in our attachment D in our packet. The 2 pages of reminded me of some of the things that I'd forgotten you'd done over the years. So I appreciate that full list of work summary tasks completed over the year. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple of questions. Jamie, thank you first for all the work that you've been doing. Much appreciated, and it's a tough time. What have you done to increase membership, specifically in Ojai, the city of Ojai?
I think the word has gotten out, and that's what makes me really excited. The way that people, I think, must be word of mouth. Businesses must be mentioning the fact that Jamie cares and he's out there and he comes up with programs like Shop, Eat, Ojai. And so already during COVID, when my counterparts, when I talk to them at other cities and they're losing members, we've gained 20 new members, and I have 4 more about to sign up over the next couple of weeks here. And I love the fact that we have that sense of family where people see the value that we bring to really support as a family. I can never walk in and tell a store, and that's where the challenge at first was always, I specifically can help you, but as a whole group in this valley, because it's a small valley, as a family, everyone feels that support. And I want to remind the council, I'm not a chamber guy, and we don't run this as a chamber because we do not have big car dealerships. We don't have shopping malls. We don't have all these big box Walmarts paying tens of thousands of dollars in to fund the chamber. So we run this as a support mechanism, more to be a body of support to talk, communicate, and keep the morale going here and help work with the city on all different things.
Are those 20 new businesses in the city of Ojai or in the valley?
They're all through the valley.
Okay. Did you increase dues?
No, you have to understand, we're in a major COVID pandemic. most of these businesses are having extreme trouble just paying payroll, let alone staying open.
Okay, just, thank you for your answers.
In fact, it's been really tough because as a gesture of support in this community, the board voted for us to, this last year, offer either payment plans, reduce until they can get their feet back on the ground, because it's more important, we feel, as a community to lose revenue and try to still be here to keep the family together for future. And so instead of being able to raise dues, we're actually doing the best we can to keep our doors open while still supporting this community.
Okay, and how were you involved in the formula business issue that came up recently?
Can you be more specific on formula?
And James, James, you've met and talked about the formula business issues that have come up recently, and I was just wondering if you had been involved in those
Are you
discussions.
talking about the big box restrictions?
I think it's because the chain store issues come up a few times recently. I think the question is if the chamber's talking to businesses on that.
What we're doing right now on that is we are sending out an e-blast tomorrow, because we've already, the stores that are a little concerned about a new store coming into this town, which, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, which I think is legally able to do so, but it's still brought to the head this topic of where do you draw the limit? 10, 11, 4. Personally, I think if you said 6, there'll still be a store that has 5 that's going to come in that no one wants. So I think the spirit of that rule was really to keep a Walmart's and people who have hundreds of stores out. So when we get down to this 11 or 12, I'm just being honest, I think we have to be a little more realistic. It's an arbitrary number, and we're always going to end up in a situation where someone else just fits in and no one's happy with that. However, I've instructed the stores that have been upset to attend the city planning commission meeting tomorrow, to at least be able to speak their, if that's tomorrow, whatever the date is of it, the Wednesday.
Next Wednesday is that?
Next Wednesday, thank you, next Wednesday. And I've assured those same stores that tomorrow morning, we're going to be sending out an e-blast to any other stores if they want to at least be involved in this, so that everyone at least has a chance to say what they think about this. So that's what we're doing right now, is trying to be very proactive. But I think it's an arbitrary number, and you know, it could have been 8 and we still be in the same discussion.
And let me jump in before any member of the council responds on that particular point. As we know, the formula business ordinance is a legislative item, which is within the judgment of the city council regarding whether and how to change the existing formula business ordinance, which is also not on tonight's agenda. So I'll ask any member of the council to not comment on that item, and instead hold your comment for the meeting when it returns. It will be returning to the city council for discussion in a notice public hearing that will be held after the planning commission makes a recommendation. They did not get to it on their meeting last week. They're expected to get to their meeting next week, Wednesday, the 19th at 6 p.m. by Zoom, and then it'll come to city council thereafter.
Okay.
That I'll turn it back to the council. Thank you.
Randy, question?
Yeah, by the way, Matt, thank you for that, but I wasn't going to talk about the formula. I understand that.
Of course, thank you.
You know, as I looked through the information that Jamie provided us, the first question that comes to mind is, do we have an economic development position in the community? And that actually belongs to the city manager. So on top of all the other things that we require our city manager to do, he technically should be doing everything on these 3 pages that Jamie has demonstrated that they do as a chamber, and that he does as the chamber president, and that the chamber members actually help in developing ideas and participating in discussions and just being active in how our businesses stay together in the crisis that was before us this last year. I don't know what a position like this would cost. I don't know if it's 100,000. I don't know if it's 50,000. I don't know if it's 75,000. I don't know if it's even more than that. But I do know that it's invaluable, the services that the chamber has provided us over the last year, and beyond. So again, if I have the opportunity tonight to make the motion, I am definitely going to include figuring out how we provide the money that they're requesting to continue the services that they're providing, and being the pillar of support in the business community. And as we head out of COVID and get back to some form of normalcy, how important that liaison and that position is going to be for this community. So Jamie, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for how you've done it. Thank you for all the times that you've participated in our business meetings with Councilman Wyrick, with the city manager, with Chris. I have a hard time pronouncing his last name from the inn, but Dr. Halverson, your input was invaluable. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I have one more question. And this is from your professional services agreement. It says you actively solicit new non-tourist related businesses, specifically in sustainability, music, and wellness. And I just wanted to check in and see what's happening in those three areas, as well as the Green Business Networks.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. Two quick things. One, per your comment you made to me about a month ago, how we need to focus on industries that have higher paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those industries you just named off, which yes, a year or two ago are still on my radar list because they fit the brand of Ojai very nicely. But what I've done is I've been very proactive in now reaching out more to industries that I think can have higher paying jobs and be in Ojai. And so last month we formed a, it's called the Ojai Digital Media Alliance. And it is skyrocketing beautifully. We're getting memberships. When I say members, people wanting to join. And we are going to have our first meeting. It looks like I may have to shift it, but right now it's scheduled for the last week of June. And these are top technology professionals. Ojai is blessed with some of the top immersion technology people. And now we're bringing in the video, audio immersion technologies, because the video and the audio is already here. And it's going to be something with the top names in these industries that already kind of reside here becoming part of this organization. We've had people from all over the county up in Santa Barbara all saying they want to start becoming involved. We now are getting people from Los Angeles saying they're interested. And that's my whole point, because they all love Ojai, and I want them to start coming here and getting used to the fact that we want this to become a point of place for them to put their roots down. And so this new alliance, I think is the best thing that has suddenly happened in us reaching out to some really good industries. And that includes film, music, digital, software, all the different elements that do get involved nowadays in your digital media.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you're all welcome to attend when we have the meeting. I think you'll be very impressed with when you start meeting who lives here and there's some who's in the world.
Absolutely. All right. Okay, so are we ready for some discussion on this?
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion.
Well,
You want to make a motion, get a second, and have a discussion?
Another option would do a receive and file until we get a full picture. Randy, another option would be to, just in discussion, is to do a receive and file until we complete the budget review, which we haven't done, in subsequent meetings. I'm just saying it's an option.
Well, I struggle. I mean, I don't believe in deficit spending, and I would give away money to all these organizations if we have the money. We're in the red, and so we shouldn't give away taxpayers' money to nonprofits when we don't have the money. And we are a nonprofit. We're in charge of a nonprofit, and we're saying that we want to give money away to other nonprofits. And it's a really important time right now to create a different culture. And we're a tiny little town, and we're suffering because we've gone through a really hard time. So in terms of moving forward, I would recommend that nonprofits, because here are 3 nonprofits asking us for money, there are going to be many, 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 right? And so aside from us, nonprofits can get money from county, state, and federal government grants and contracts, fees for goods and or services, individual donations and major gifts, bequests, corporate contributions, foundation grants, interest from investments, loans, and program-related investments. And while I really appreciate all the good work that these groups have done, this was seed money, and the idea is get things going, and then find your own sources of from that, for example. So I just want to put that out there. Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit, Mayor, because I think there's a distinction between contracts for services rendered and seed money for nonprofits. To me, one of the things that we do is get a lot more done through contract for services with specific organizations than we could accomplish with in-house staff. And I think that, to my mind, there's a distinction there. And when we're talking about, I'm not sure the startup analogy fits in all circumstances when we are dealing with an ongoing contract for services type situation as specific to the city. So I think a little more, I would put a little bit more of a granular judgment on rather than that sweeping judgment on everything. The way that you described it, just a little bit of a pushback in my way of looking at it.
Randy and then Susan.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mayor. You used the word culture and you didn't really clarify what culture you're trying to create. I just can't envision a culture in Ojai without its own museum. And again, the museum staff is an extension of who we are, what we are, and what we can't do. We don't run museums as a city. The museum is historically the fabric and the backbone of this community. So, we've had this discussion in numerous council meetings about defunding specific entities, and I just find it. I understand what you're saying. So it's okay to have that opinion, but the reason these entities come to us for funding is they can't do it themselves, or they have tried and have not had any success in it. And so for them to stay and to be a contributor to the community, we've had to fund them ourselves. So again, I have no problem funding the museum. I would imagine that the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council, which you sit on and that James sits on and a couple other members of the community sit on, I don't imagine you would have let Chris come here and request that grant unless you supported him. So I find that interesting that you sit on a committee that's coming to us requesting funding, and yet you're saying don't fund it. I'm not sure if that's what you told them in the committee.
No, I told him exactly that. And in terms of culture, I mean that these are, of course I love the museum. It's about finding other sources of income, and we shouldn't be paying for things when we don't have the money. That's my point.
Mayor, on that point, that was one of the reasons I suggested a receive and file, because we went over several issues of clarification in terms of our actual budget balance. It could have James, correct me if I'm wrong, could have up to $250,000, $300,000 swing, depending upon, like the point I brought up on the restricted funding grants for the general plan update. So I'm not sure we have all the information we need to know exactly what our deficit position even is tonight.
I don't think it's to that level. I don't think it's 250 to 300,000. I think we've had a couple of costs come in and maybe 100,000, but I think it'd be fair to say, you know, we have this workshop and 2 more workshops. So taking that feedback, we could come back and leave that question of what community groups to fund and what amounts, if that's what council chooses to do. I think the big idea was we wanted every group to come that's going to ask to come give information so that the council can think about it.
There's also funding that we are doing, like transferring CIP or TOT transfer to CIP for $178,000. You know, you could take that $178,000 and fund these 3 requests at $149,000 and have additional revenue off to apply to the debt, Mayor. So again, I agree. There's lots of money here that we should be able to look at and adapt our budget to, and actually see as a council which groups we want to support and which groups that we don't want to support. So I'd be in favor of waiting until we're finished with the other 2 workshops. I don't think we have to make a decision tonight. But we obviously are letting our voices be heard in the community, what we believe in and what we feel we need to support. At least I am. So,
Souza, did you want to make a comment? Oh, you're muted.
I am more comfortable to support receive and file. And I think I don't think we should say that we don't want to fund. I think we should say we just can't afford to fund, because if we had the money, I think we would want to fund everyone that comes before us. And
Sure.
I think Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what you actually meant. I don't think you meant that you don't want to fund.
No, as I said, if we had money, I'd give it all away to, you know, but we don't have it.
I think at this point, you know, the more I listen, the more I study this, I would be in favor of receive and file till we get the big picture. We're all done.
I'll go ahead and motion that we do a receive and file on this and wait for this further discussion until we have all the available information.
Great. I'll second that.
Okay, great. May we have a vote, please, Gail?
Mayor Sticks,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Blatz,
Yes.
Councilmember Haney,
Sure, but you know, it's actually I'm not even sure if we needed a motion. It says here just a general budget forecast is probably a file and receive anyway. But yeah, if I voted yes, I mean yes.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Nuanced, yes.
All right, moving on to the last of the consulting services.
Yes, and we touched a little bit on it during the budget discussion, but we're bringing this forward as a discussion item because we just want to be really transparent about it. I think most of the community knows that Ojai, under protest, went to districting. Time is flies, but I think it was about 2 years ago now that the city moved to districts. And so the staff report notes the history on that and the fact that the Ojai, like many cities, was challenged because we weren't in districts, so we moved to it under protest. But there's a lot of confusion, and so on the kind of the next steps, which is we just went to protests, but we went to districts, but we went to districts just before the new census came out in response to those threats of litigation. And so the new census is coming out, and so we will need to redistrict. And as we mentioned earlier, I don't think any of us are happy about the idea of having to spend another chunk of money on redistricting so soon, but it's just it's legally required due to the new census information coming out. And so we wanted to go through that process and just go through it very publicly. We solicited 3 bids, or we sent an RFP out and solicited proposals, and we received 3 bids. And those are in the staff report: National Demographics Corporation, Bear Demographics, and Redistricting Partners. We've reviewed those bids pretty thoroughly. I believe we had used, and the city attorney can confirm, that we used National Demographics the first time around a couple years ago.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bear Demographics is a new demographic consulting service that did not have any other references. And then Redistricting Partners was the third bid. Redistricting Partners was essentially a full service bid that included outreach and like the when I say outreach, it's like the things like creating the website, putting all the information there, posting things on the web pages, newspaper press releases, things like that. As we go through the process, they're going to keep the community involved and updated on the process. So we went through the proposals and we are recommending Redistricting Partners. And so the item is recommending that we contract with Redistricting Partners. And then I'm not going to go through a PowerPoint, but I just want to show one thing real quick, which is this timeline, because I think the first reaction everybody has when we bring this up is that we're pretty far away from, we're a year out from when we have to have a final map. And we are pretty far out from the next election, but we wanted to kind of put together this timeline to show the council and the community what the process looks like and when we'll be doing these things, because most of these things will be done publicly. So as you can see, we're pretty much on schedule. May 15th, we had set as kind of the start date when we would contract with the demographer. We are doing that today. We will have to have a redistricting website established by June 1st. The census data is anticipated to be released by September 30th. And we'll also put together our outreach strategy at that time. We'll have multiple public hearings and drafts through October, November, December, and January, with a fourth public hearing and adoption in February of 2022. And then our absolute drop dead deadline is April of 2022 that we'll have to adopt the final map. So that's the process in a nutshell that we're working towards. We're taking step one today by contracting with the demographer. So
let me add a couple of quick points before the council considers the matter. First is the redistricting requirement is legally required under applicable state and federal law every 10 years with the census, even though, as we well know, only one of the 4 districts even had an election on the current map. And as we well know, Ojai is not expected in this census to have seen significant population growth nor decline, nor are we expected to see significant. What matters for redistricting is both total numbers, but also shifting within the community. We aren't expecting to see any dramatic increase here, decrease there, but nonetheless, we're still required by law, by Sacramento's wisdom or lack thereof, to complete the redistricting process. We also don't expect that the state or the feds will delay that census data release deadline further. I'll note it has been delayed by 4 months from its original deadline of April of this year. The prior federal administration delayed it, citing the pandemic and for other obvious reasons. And so that pushed the census data release date back, but our deadline of April 17, 2022, which is tied to the November 2022 election, cannot be pushed back. So we've just had our window compressed. I do not expect the state to extend our deadline at all. And that's why we've worked together to put a timeline in place that has us recommending adoption of this contract a year in advance to ensure plenty of time. I'll also note that the proposed schedule we've put together would have the council adopt the map at the second meeting in February, which does give a month and a half of extra time should the council need it between February and the mid-April deadline next year. So we've built in some flex. The other piece to recognize is that the process, oh Lordy, apologies. We have environmental elements of our building that turn off the lights if they're not used enough if you don't move enough. So Green New Deal.
You need to move more, Ryan. A little more dancing
there,
Matthew.
Right? Sitting is the new sitting is the new smoking. I need to sit less. I'll work on that. But the process this time around has been adjusted by the state. They've adopted a new set of requirements that govern the redistricting process, which includes, among other things, some greater public outreach requirements, greater website notification requirements, and at least 4 public hearings, one of which has to be on a Saturday or Sunday or a weekday after 6. That latter one is fairly easy, and a particular order for those hearings. So it's a more robust process than we did last time to adopt the maps, and that's part of why the recommendation is to go with the full service firm as proposed. Thank you.
Randy, question?
I thought, Matt, maybe one of the other things would be that 3 council people couldn't be next door neighbors.
That will be one of the challenges, is the reality of our existing pinwheel map. There may have to be a change in that. And actually that brings up one of the point that I should note is the state's also rewritten the factors that have to be considered in drawing the maps. It's 5 factors that have to be considered in order, and that might result in a more compact set of maps than we have now. The current maps are extremely lawful. However, the state has changed those requirements for the next round, and that may impact the mapping as well. The last point I will note is that you may be wondering, what about the Santa Monica litigation? As you may recall, and for those members of the public who are following this may recall, City of Santa Monica was sued by the same folks who went after Ojai and many other cities. The trial court affirmed that the arguments raised by the plaintiffs challenging Santa Monica's at-large voting system. Court of Appeal, however, reversed. Court of Appeal held that Santa Monica was not required to switch to districts because it had not, its at-large voting system did not trigger the relevant standard, finding that at-large voting was only unlawful, was only a violation of the California Voting Rights Act if the plaintiffs could show that at-large voting prevented in a meaningful way minority voters from having their preferences expressed through the ballot box, changing the standard for when a city must switch from at-large to district-based voting. The plaintiffs appealed that decision from the Court of Appeal up to the state Supreme Court. The state Supreme Court took the case in January, and it is presently being briefed relatively slowly as the state Supreme Court is granted a number of extensions as requested, and we are expecting that the principal briefing will be complete shortly, and by that I mean within the next 2 months. Then the amicus briefing will be another 2 months or so. Then the court will have exactly as much time as the court gives itself to make a decision. I expect we'll have a decision by the end of this year, first quarter next year. And that's one of the things that if you're thinking, well, the state might well affirm the Court of Appeal, which would potentially allow the city to decline to switch to redistrict and switch back to at large, we aren't going to get that decision in time to not start this process. And I don't know how the Supreme Court is going to rule. That's very much an open question. I also would expect that given the current mindset that's prevailing in much of Sacramento, that even if the Supreme Court adopts something that would credibly allow the city to consider switching back to at large, the state legislature may interfere quickly. So with that in mind, we recognize that we're sort of operating on shifting ground, but running our best recommendation is to proceed with redistricting under current law. And then we're monitoring that case closely to see if and when any positive result for local control comes out of the state Supreme Court. And my last comment there is I will note the League of Cities is doing an amicus brief, and I'm on the committee that will be supervising that brief to ensure that it focuses in part on small city issues, as distinct from the much larger cities for which districts might be right. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment.
Can we, any public comment on this, Gail?
No public comment.
Okay. Souza?
After Souza.
Okay. I'm all for the public outreach because there are still people who think somehow that we dreamed this up, that we're doing some gerrymandering and illegal maneuvering to stay on this job of being on the city council. I wish we could do some kind of protest where we all move next door to each other, we should have done that before this all started, some way to show that this is ridiculous in a small town. I mean, we're almost living next door to each other as it is. No, I just hate, it's just, I think we need to make sure that the public understands that we are doing this because we're trapped in it. There's not, I just hate blowing the money on this. Oh, my other question, I did have a question. How can we start this process if we don't have the data till September?
That's a great question. The answer is that the first part of the process is to take information regarding what communities of interest, what neighborhoods, what are identifiable boundaries that should be considered in drawing the maps. That part of the new state process I mentioned is there has to be at least one hearing before maps have even been released in order to take input from the community on what the boundary, the demographer should take into account in drawing the draft maps. So that's what we can start with, is what do folks want to focus on, accepting that we're doing this under protest, but nonetheless, the recommendation is to draw the maps, therefore what should be considered. And then once the data comes out, then that gets turned into draft maps.
So even if the census data shows minuscule changes, we can't just leave what we have.
So it's not to say that we can't re-adopt the existing maps, but we still have to go through the process.
Go through the process, even though we may end up exactly the same.
It's possible, but the one caution is that the compactness standard has gone up to require more compact maps, and our current maps, as you of course deeply familiar with, have that pinwheel element in the middle that is not exactly compact. So that's going to be one challenge, is has the census data, the relative population, shifted in a way that makes that less defensible in the new rules than it was under the current old rules.
I have one other question, burning question. Can the current the four members that are going to be up for re-election, can they anticipate that they'll stay in the same district?
That will be an open question that will depend in part upon where the lines are drawn.
Okay. And can I anticipate, as a renter that may need to move, that my options may expand? And I have to stay in the current District 4, right? Until 2024, or could that change?
So for anyone, as the only one elected from a district, Councilmember Francina, your need to continue to live in the district in which you were elected to. So if the map moves, let's say you stayed in your current location or moved, next door, for example, and the map moved and put you across the line, you stay in your seat. No one is removed. And the same would be true if the other three members of council had been elected from the district in which they currently reside. When the maps are adopted to move things around, if they move them, no one is removed from your seat. You remain on council. But the requirement would then be, when you seek to run for re-election, you would have to run from the district from which you live. So if, in other words, Councilmember Francina, if you were to move somewhere else within District 4 as is drawn now, which you would have to do to remain on council,
I understand that. Yeah.
then it wouldn't matter if the line was later drawn to shift that from District 4 to District 1, you would stay on council in District 4, having remained living where you were having remained living in the boundary in which you were elected to. But to run again in 2024, then you would need to run for the district, say in this example, District 1.
I would need to move.
If you wanted to run out of District 4, correct. In that example. But so in short, no one is removed from office. Everyone keeps the current seats. But you might have to either move or run against someone else currently on council to run for re-election.
Okay, I think I get it. Thank you.
And I'll note, for those members of the public who may not recall, the council has 4 members of council elected from 4 districts and 1 at-large mayor. Mayor Sticks remains at large and is elected by the entire city every 2 years. And there's no mapping changes there.
Bill?
Thank you, Ms. Dix. I just wanted to state for the record and subject to correction by Mr. Summers, of course, please jump in if I'm misstating things, that one of the pernicious aspects of what our legislators in Sacramento have set up is by having this sort of, in effect, a burden of proof that you're doing harm. It's not a proof. The burden of proof is not that you're doing harm. The burden of proof is that you're not doing harm. Proving a negative almost.
In essence, yes, the presumption was set up to force the city who faced a challenge to switch.
To prove a negative. And I think that one of the nubs of the Santa Monica case is that has the effect of penalizing underrepresented populations in very small jurisdictions. That's one of the things that they are attempting to prove, is that it paradoxically, it actually is dysfunctional with respect to the main stated purpose of this legislation because of the way it makes you prove a negative.
And that was one of the points that the Court of Appeal considered in the Santa Monica decision, was that in the mind of the Court of Appeal, the standard articulated by the trial court would have resulted in reduced effectiveness in representation of the Latino community in Santa Monica under districts as it was under at large. Hence, the Court of Appeal considered that in its decision there.
My point being is that, I wish the legislature would fix this.
Randy and then Ryan.
I'm not sure if Ryan's going to beat me to it, but it sounds like we need to make a motion here.
I was just gonna say we can opine on how much we don't like this and how we want, but we don't have a choice. So
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say that. I think it's time. It's 10 o'clock and I'm fried. So do we need a motion to accept the city manager's execution of a service agreement with Redistricting Partners for demographic consulting services in an amount not to exceed $70,000?
That would be in order. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Roll call, please, Gail.
Councilmember Blatz,
Unfortunately, yes.
Councilmember Francina,
Reluctant, yes.
Councilmember Haney,
Well, because I don't live close to those three. No, of course, yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Okay.
Way to go, Mayor.
Is that a yes?
Yes, that's a yes. Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Wyrick.
Regretful yes.
Okay, we did it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll move it forward.
Yes, we are. All right, moving on to council member reports. Anybody have anything to report? Bill?
Mayor Sticks, I do. I really do have to say something really quick. The city of Oxnard voted to divert all the tons of solid waste currently going to a public landfill with union jobs that's closer to the and less emissions and wear and tear on highway to an area that made it, in other words, from a public tolling landfill, they voted publicly to move all tons to waste management. Further away, more air pollution, get rid of union jobs for non-union jobs, more wear and tear on roads, like I stated. And this is, something that hasn't gotten a lot of notice in the county, but it's, for all the reasons stated, I think a significant public policy matter, especially in terms of the step back on environmental quality and traffic congestion that this represents, not to mention the union job issue. So I just wanted to report that that's, that happened in the Ventura Regional Sanitation District is looking at its options. On the a couple of quick questions. A city manager question: have we come to a decision on what we think a fair amount of lease rate to charge the sheriff department would be? Just yet? Do we have a number yet that we're thinking of?
we had put an estimate together, but we haven't had council review it or.
Okay, so that'll be a future thing.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting for the county to tell us what their receipts are, their gate receipts are at the Boardman entrance.
Yeah.
At County Park. I think we've asked them now for about 2 months for that, right?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
submitted that. Yeah, I'll follow up on it.
Okay. And the other comment I wanted to make was that, and I won't have any city manager questions. I'll just get rid of it all. You know, the one we talked about the app was being, kind of a vintage goal that we hadn't, that we finally are getting taken care of. And it takes time to do these things. To me, the major outstanding goal not done yet is a review of the VMU situation that was stated as a goal for council to look at a couple of years ago. At the very least, it's missed, my opinion, a miscategorization as commercial and industrial district, and perhaps some other aspects of it. And I'm really worried that our delay in dealing with that situation is opening up the door to some dysfunctional speculation hurting our housing supply in this community. And I hope we can get around to that, addressing that goal sooner rather than later.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I thought you were going to say the other outstanding item is the review of the sheriff's agreement, which we are.
No, we're dealing with
in progress on. Yeah, I thought that's where you're going.
No, I was talking about the VMU matter.
Yeah,
that's been on the goal list now for a couple of years. And
yeah, I'll follow up with community development on it.
Yeah.
Randy?
I'm not sure what we're doing right now.
We're doing as I said, the council member reports. Do you have anything to report?
Well, I'm not trying to step on Bill's toes, but I heard one thing about a council report. So I'm just, again, trying to figure out how we get off track so easily here. No, I have no comment.
Okay, Ryan, Souza, anything to report?
No, I have some questions, but I can ask James via email.
Okay, well, I'd like to promote Emergency Preparedness Day on May 27th, 11 a.m. in Libby Park. It's going to be a big event, and it's also going to be virtual. And we made some PSAs on Saturday with fire and police. James is a star now, so you'll get to soon see James on video, and it's going to be really great to get everybody involved, and that the app is a great start for that. So stay tuned. And I'd also like to thank staff for our Arbor Day, because that was a really great event. We never mentioned it, and so thank you very much. Really wonderful to get out there and see everybody getting dirty and planting a tree. So thank you. Okay, moving on, we have the city manager's report.
Yeah, and I only have two quick things. One is we've started removing the zebradillos and started making those modifications to the demo project as discussed last week, but we have started to remove the zebradillos. We're getting a lot of requests from people who want them as a piece of Ojai history. Now, whether I guess that's famous or infamous, I guess is the question. But we've started removing them. We have them. We're keeping them, and we're talking about using them as potentially some of the for some of the projects like the Centennial Time Capsule and some of those things coming up. So we have that going and in progress. I think the other thing I wanted to mention is as far as the next council meeting, we have the second budget workshop, which is focused on the CIP capital improvement projects and Measure C. We have the general plan vision and guiding principles, which the Planning Commission reviewed at their last meeting, and it was very interesting. They had an multiple hour long conversation going through it, and I think we can get through it probably quicker than that, but we will be finalizing that to move the general plan project forward. And we have the pesticide management program request from 2 council members scheduled to return that meeting as well. and then the COVID update. So that's what's tentatively scheduled for the next May 25th council meeting. And that's it.
Sorry, I was contacted by Diversity Collective, a nonprofit in Ventura, about declaring June to be Pride Month, which is very common in lots of cities, to support the LGBTQ community and equity and inclusion. So.
Can you see that Ryan is raising his hand?
No, I can't. Did you raise your hand, Ryan?
Yeah, I did. I just want to clarify. We got an email today from Greg about the ATP, and it says we're removing parking, but then it says we're widening parking by the meadow, and then it says we're doing diagonal parking. So I wasn't sure what the combination of parking was. That was the final decision.
For the demonstration project, for the immediate changes, we were widening the parking from 8 feet to 9.5 feet to address those immediate concerns with people not being able to get in. But there's kind of two phases. It's like the things we can do quickly out on the demo project, and then as the longer term, the second phase fix, that would be actually looking at removing parking. So.
Well, it said, all right, because it said demo permit changes underway, number 3, add two-way bike lane, and that says this will require removal of parking.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
sounds like demo project, but I wasn't sure after our last meeting. The paper didn't make it clear. I asked a couple people who watched the meeting, and I still wasn't totally clarified on what the status of the demonstration parking is.
Yeah, so they're both of those changes are anticipated to occur during the demo project, but it's the first group is the things we can do really quickly, like just widening the parking spaces, and then while we're doing the analysis to actually remove the parking spaces.
So are we planning to do the double bike lane and a wider parking space? Or I mean a longer parking space?
No, so widening the parking spaces immediately, the complaint about people opening the doors and
Right, I get that.
So we're doing that right away, and then we're looking at the two-way bike lane and removing parking as an option for the demo project.
Okay, all right.
Great. Anything else before we adjourn?
Are we on future agenda items?
Yeah.
Do we have a schedule yet for, we're several years overdue on the Community Forest Management Plan update review? We got that in our sites yet? I'm not saying it's an emergency or anything like that, James. I just wondered if we have it in our sites at some future meeting yet.
Yep. I got the draft from the consultant about 2 hours before the meeting. So it'll be reviewing that, and then we'll schedule it to move forward. So
it's in sight somewhere.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else before we adjourn? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening. Thanks.
Maybe a Ferrari rather than the